Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Arrighetti, the right-hander, comes home. Soto drives it into left center field. Myers back on the run at the wall. Gone. Goodbye. One. Soto.
2-2 to Stokes. Chops that one down in right field for a base hit. That's going to bring home Silva and the Huskers with a 6-2 lead here in the bottom of the seventh inning.
Now the Panthers fight to keep it in. Here's Barkov. High slot, looks right. Reinhardt, Barkov in front of shot. He scores! It's Barkov on the power play. And the Panthers add on another one.
And Pasternak still wants that Tkachuk even after the officials have gotten in between.
He's not happy because Tkachuk took an extra shot while Pasternak was on the ice. Two star players going at it. Great for Pasternak. Unbelievable.
Zadora passes to center for Joshua. Drops to Garland with speed. Right wing. Into the other zone. Makes a shot. Takes a shot. He scores! Are you kidding me? Connor Garland with a complete fake out of Stuart Skinner gives the Canucks the lead.
Clock ticks down. Precious Achiuwa will dribble it out. And the Knicks take a 2-0 lead, pulling out a 130-121 victory over the Indiana Pacers.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
What up?
Nothing. That crack was an energy drink. I'm not like popping a beer this early.
I know, and I'm thinking to myself, you have that nicely, although I've told you this before, your ice to ice ratio makes me nuts, but you have that nice soda that you so much love.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't touched it. You haven't even put the straw in there.
No, I haven't. I'm probably not going to because I'll pour it into here.
But you started with the Monster.
Yeah, I need the energy before I get to the Diet Coke.
Okay, so
it's a priority
issue. What do you do in the car? Do you just wait to get here to drink it, or do you wait to put it to transform it into your mug?
No, I just wait to drink it. I never put the Monster in my mug because that's always got soda in it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't mix, obviously.
Oh yeah, I've fallen victim to that.
And so I actually will put the other Diet Coke into my container here, but I don't know why I don't drink the Monster in the car. I've never really thought about it, to be honest with you. It's never.
I'm just curious.
Oh, you know what it is? It's because
tell me.
I'm like going through my weird like OCD things, and I think I figured it out in real time here. I've had to do this before, and I don't like it. If I don't finish it on the commute, then I have to bring an open can into here, and I'll spill it on myself because I'm carrying a bunch of stuff.
So that's actually not super crazy.
Yeah.
It's actually not, because sometimes when I'm transporting, especially like if I'm at school or something, I have multiple backpacks or I have something that I'm using, and I always have my Yeti and the lid's not closed.
Yeah.
It inevitably tilts and stuff, so it spills on me. I would not want to carry around an open.
Yeah.
The reason I take my Yeti everywhere is because I don't like cans.
Yeah, I don't mind cans. It's really just I don't want to spill stuff on me. So like that's why I always use this kind of container.
Mm-hmm.
This is the
a big kid's thermos. That's what that looks like.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you want to put chicken noodle soup in there?
I do not want to put chicken noodle soup in there. Without, you know what's funny?
Do you just want to look at me and say, like, why are you in my business? You can say that to me, and I would just say, oh, I didn't mean to offend. I just wanted to know.
No, I mean, we're like essentially married at this point.
That's
so
kind of weird. We just have these open dialogues.
I just don't really even.
What are you looking at? You mad because I didn't ask you what you were doing?
Lucky for you guys, that day is not today.
I can't stand you.
No, yeah, I just figure at this point it's like everything's fair game. So,
Shane, what flavor was your vape to this lately here?
Was it a Snickerdoodle one? Because I've smelled those before, and those smell good.
It smells weird. I just want to know what it is.
You want to know what it's called?
That's why I asked.
And I'm on the very last tail end of it, but
that's why I asked.
It's called Nude.
Okay.
Is that why you bought it?
Okay, explain.
He
it works like his pixels, but it doesn't.
But that's what you asked. What it was called?
Does it release some sort of endorphins? What flavor is it?
It's a guava flavor.
Why is it called Nude if it's guava flavor?
And why couldn't he just answer the question?
Yeah, you could have just been like, hey, it's guava flavor.
Strawberry guava.
Because you tell us it's called Nude. That doesn't mean anything to us.
Golly, man, I see where this is going today.
This is I don't.
That thing wet.
No,
No,
Shane.
no,
That's not how the vape works.
No.
Man, I feel great, man. I know I'm going to Disneyland.
It's all right. I come in here every morning and I'm I'm carrying all my stuff as we mentioned, and I don't want to spill my drinks or anything. And like 90% of the time, Shane's out there, free hands, just staring at me as I struggle with the key in the door. And today, for the first time, he goes, "I probably should help you with that, huh?"
So,
and I go, "Yeah, you never do though, so it's okay."
Full disclosure, similar comment to yesterday, walking in to one Hurrdat, and we almost were coming in, going out at the same time.
Oh yeah, he won't hold the door.
Hands full.
Yep.
And I said, Shane probably could have held that door 1 second longer.
Yeah.
And he looked at me like I was the short one.
Oh, come on, Shane.
Yeah, no, he unless you are literally walking through the door simultaneously as him.
Do you know what it is?
He will not hold the door.
Yeah, he doesn't want you to walk by him that close.
It's
a
fine.
very small opening, and he's just weird.
That's
Why
fine.
the fuck is Shane walking in there?
I have no idea.
I ask myself that every day.
A little neurotic.
Every day. It's okay. I'm a little neurotic too, but like I'm still holding doors for people,
It's okay. It's okay. It's R.I.P.
I don't know who is that.
Nightbird.
Is Nightbird dead?
Yes, Ravi.
I don't know who Nightbird is.
Oh, I see.
She won a golden ticket on that show, America's Got Talent.
Oh, Willy Wonka?
Wow.
Is that different?
Are you kidding me?
I think
was it Gene Wilder, Johnny Depp, or Timothy Chalamet? Which Willy Wonka was
is
it?
the last guy the reboot?
Well, Johnny Depp and Timothy Chalamet were the reboots.
Johnny Depp was like 10 years ago.
Closer to 20, I think, but yeah.
Okay, but whatever.
It was like 2005, is a long time ago.
But this new guy is as of late, right?
Yeah, this was a couple years, or within the last 2 years, maybe last year.
Okay.
I don't know.
Speaking of being late, before we even have anything remotely related to sports.
Yeah.
Rolled over last night about 3:41 for the night. Would you like to guess why?
Why is that?
Didn't have anything to do with hockey, even though, Edmonton tricked it off, which they're just not clutch.
They have anything to do with Nebraska baseball?
No, although I have a lot of questions.
Okay, we'll get to those. We're talking to Bruntz later, so that'll help too.
Yeah, I hope he knows.
Well, if he doesn't, no one does.
Because I'm sure somebody asks, and maybe it was him, but I had some questions. I went down the rabbit hole of a show that I have never, ever seen. That I only saw roughly, and I'm dead dog serious, 45 snippets of various scenes last night.
On purpose? Like, did you?
Yes.
Like, you started seeking them out?
Well, just, yeah.
Okay.
I stayed on the videos portion.
What show was it?
Sopranos.
Oh, it's a good show.
It looks incredible.
It's really, really good.
It looks incredible.
I'm a big mob movie guy.
Yeah, we've talked.
Sopranos is really good.
So now I'm hooked.
Yeah. You'll, like, as long as you can get past, because some people have a hard time.
That's how I watched Sons of Anarchy, although it was like years later. It started with, that's how I got into, well, actually, Peaky Blinders was told to me a long time ago.
Yeah, I was one of those
people. But it was
people.
reinforced by
TikTok. Peaky Blinders is incredible.
I'm almost done with season 2.
The first 4 seasons are the best. The last 2 are okay. But
I get why you like that guy. He's pretty sweet.
Cillian Murphy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a dude.
He's a bad boy.
I love that dude. I'll watch him in just about everything. But yeah, the Sopranos is, as long as you don't have a problem with kind of the age technology, so whether it's like the flip phone, burner phone, because some people get hung up on that. As long as you're cool with that, you will love Sopranos.
I watched a movie from 2012, and it looked awful.
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen The Guest?
I have not. It's kind of a creepy movie, isn't it? You know I don't watch those. Come on, man.
I forgot.
Come on, man.
Mary Poppins doesn't come down off her umbrella at the end. Or
I actually don't like Mary
Dorothy
Poppins.
doesn't like kick her heels.
I don't really like Wizard of Oz either.
Brave, Moana.
I don't like animated movies. I don't even recognize what we're doing today.
Some sort of radio, I guess. I don't know. This is basically just a talk show.
Yeah, no, it is for sure, and with a loose sports construction.
Yeah,
there's a scaffolding there, but that's about it.
A couple, 2 or 3 arguments a day keeps the doctor away.
Sometimes it's with us. Sometimes it's with other
I know
people.
one thing. Steve said he's coming on his 40th reunion, and he's kicking your rear end.
Okay, good luck, bud.
I'm just passing that along.
Hey, that's fine.
He said he's glad
The Sopranos is great,
done
by the
with
way.
this liberal state. I said, shoot, Nebraska's been red as long since Ben Nelson.
Yeah.
My two favorite episodes are the Pine Barrows episode and the Monopoly episode.
I think for the Pine, I don't like Pine Barrens as much as everybody else does.
I love that episode.
I take it this is a signature episode.
Pine Barrens, I think, but yes,
Pine Barrens.
It's considered one of the best episodes of television ever made. And
what season was it?
3, I think, 2 or 3.
What made it iconic?
So it's sort of this. It's almost like a buddy cop type thing where
I don't even know what that means.
So the movies where you got two friends that are cops, and it's sort of like this.
Yeah, I did watch CIA the other day with
was it
the little black guy in The Rock?
Yeah,
what's
Kevin
his name?
Hart.
Yes,
there you go. Little black guy in The Rock.
That didn't even sound right, but whatever.
No,
whatever, man. This is me in all my glory.
I just got that.
And then again,
that's what you were accusing me of yesterday. No, it's kind of like, it's sort of the dysfunctional partnership that's the buddy cop dynamic, right?
Okay.
So where you like each other, but you're arguing and whatever. And so a little bit like what we have going on here, if we're being honest, minus the law enforcement portion of it. But so that, and they get lost in the New Jersey Pine Barrens I think they're trying to find a body that they buried.
Who's they?
2 of Tony Soprano's underlings. So Chrissy, and then Paulie. I don't know if Paulie Walnuts. I don't know if you picked the names up from the clips.
Yep. I know Paulie.
Yeah, so Paulie and then Chrissy, the nephew.
So I watched a thing. Hopefully I'm not ruining it, but it didn't ruin it for Sons of Anarchy either.
I mean,
it can't really show killing so much on TikTok, but
yeah. Also, it's been 20 years, so
Chrissy
no spoilers.
Lose his life.
Yeah. R.I.P. Pour one out for Chrissy.
Yeah.
Well, he was dumb. I'm gonna be honest with you. He did dumb stuff.
Not as dumb as Ralphie.
Ralphie's also very dumb.
Yeah.
Ralphie was more like reckless, I feel like, whereas Chrissy was actually kind of dumb.
So don't you feel bad for the dumb guy?
No, because you can't be in that life if you're dumb.
Ralphie did some dumb things.
Oh, he did, but I don't know that
why was his hair like that? Was that part of his shtick?
I think so. I feel like Ralphie knew.
2024, and we're talking about Sopranos. This has got to be like, what are we doing?
Listen, people just like hearing us talk. I think. Speaking of which, am I in the stream?
What's that?
Yeah, I definitely am. My brother says I would watch a Ravi DB buddy cop movie. Yeah, it's because it would be incredible. That's essentially what you're getting every day.
Yeah,
is a 3-hour like buddy cop talk show. But we got there is some sports to talk about, I suppose.
Yeah,
but yeah, you should go watch The Sopranos.
So I am upset at my choice because you gave me 2 very nice choices this morning. Not like sausage patties or bacon, but basically it was the MLB Network or the Football Network.
Yeah,
and I chose.
You chose
it was tough,
NFL.
But I said okay, let's go NFL.
Yeah,
it's Green Bay and San Francisco.
Yeah, it's our Lord.
Nobody cares.
It's our Lord and
nobody
Savior.
Cares.
It's our Lord and
nobody
Savior,
cares.
Brock Purdy.
Nobody cares.
We love Brock Purdy here.
17-4 Brock Purdy.
85% of his games
Stop
just
it.
win.
Stop it.
Roughly the clip of Nebraska from 1970 to 2000, which is pretty good. We learned.
We're 5-7. We got to practice.
He's my saving grace. Yeah. If all else fails, man, just get Coach Rule with some clips, man. We usually think alike. And shut this dude up.
Yeah,
So now we're like watching
the greatness of Brock Purdy displayed in front of our eyes.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want to call it.
To me, that sounds soft.
Prolonging the inevitable, I guess.
Yeah, losing to Patrick Mahomes. I get it. It's inevitable. It's fine.
It's a challenge.
Fine. Just let me enjoy it for a minute.
Hey, do your thing, man. Act like me watching The Sopranos. You don't know the outcome. Just pretend.
This is kind
happening?
This is kind of serendipity because your first show back was the day after the 49ers lost the Super Bowl. So
yeah, and you know what? I felt like I needed to save you.
Yeah, I needed some help. I was having a hard time.
Yeah.
It's just the lowlights.
At least you had, decent quarterback play. I'm still.
Well, at least you have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields now, so you have options for mediocre quarterback play.
Okay.
Does that make you feel better?
Okay.
I actually had a question about the Steelers. Well,
where's Raj when I need him? Buddy cop. They sock each other in the buddy cop movie.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Yeah, I didn't get the.
There's a lot of fights in buddy cop
even
movies.
If I sat through CIA, it's a very bad movie.
I actually don't.
But I was doing something on the back deck, and I turned the TV on, and for whatever the reason, it was on, so I just sat down.
That honestly, I was expecting you to be like, Micah wanted to watch it, and so I sat down.
No,
with him.
nobody was home.
Yeah, that's a tough choice on your part.
Well, I was worried about what was going on in the back corner because there's potting things that are on the grass. So I walked out there.
You didn't want it to kill the grass?
Very annoyed, yes.
So you got distracted. You didn't realize you were watching such a bad movie.
When I was walking back inside, I was like, oh, it's probably only about 63 degrees out here. I think I'm going to stay a while.
Oh, you just enjoy the weather a little bit?
I liked the way that it felt. It was a little overcast and cool, so I just...
Yeah, that's called enjoying it.
It's a little strong. It's a little strong. Words matter, right?
Cherishing it, basking in the weather.
That's way strong, and that's a little weird. Let's not do that. What's the Steelers question? If you ask me about Fields playing tight end, I'm leaving.
No.
Okay.
No, it's
That's a beautiful question.
You might leave.
No. See, you, Coach. We were on the same page for a second.
I mean, he literally said that to me, so I do feel like it applies here.
Mm-hmm.
Tony made that up. I don't know where he's coming from.
Yes, he did.
I'm not Tony though, so I didn't make anything up.
Talking about Soprano.
No, he does make a lot of stuff up. He's a little bit of a liar. That's okay. We still like him. But no, you need to go get that.
I couldn't decide. So, hey, Shane, this is. I don't be offended that I didn't ask you. What's the person again that's not really a good guy, but you're cheering for him?
Anti-hero.
Your name's not Shane.
I know, but Shane's not gonna get it right.
I'm gonna get Kool-Aid Steve on you.
It's all right. I'll fight an old man. I do not care.
Yeah, I can't even answer that. Like,
all right, what's the Steelers question?
All right, so
because I have several in Nebraska. You're gonna owe me on the back end.
Yeah, that's fine. I was looking at some NBA stuff, which is a weird way to get to the Steelers, but it made me think of them. So the clip
get in his head.
You're telling me, man. I multiple times a day I have to like rewind and tell you how I got to someplace because you're like, what just happened there? Which is totally fair. But so I'm reading headlines after like the Clippers get eliminated and the Sixers get eliminated from the NBA playoffs. And the Clippers are like, hey, we're trying to bring back Harden and Kawhi and PG, and like we're going to try and bring the band back together, right? And then the Sixers, Morey comes out and is like, hey, we're making wholesale changes, right? We're making major changes this offseason. We got to get this thing figured out. And it started making me think about like, okay, at what point do you decide we need to like tear it down and start over versus let's run it back? And that made me think of the Steelers because they've been kind of stuck in this middle ground that you don't like me to talk about. You get very upset when I talk about the Steelers middle ground, but they're in this place where it's like, okay, they've got a good roster for the most part. They've got a good coach that you like, but they are having a hard time, whether it be because of quarterback play, that they can't get over the hump, right? And what are the ways to do that? It's either you get a quarterback in the draft or you sign somebody, but not really easy to sign or trade for quality quarterback play in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So like, what do you do in that situation? Like, what are your options there? Because you don't want to bottom out, right? You don't want to waste a year of a talented roster.
I hope and I pray that I make it someday, but I'm still like, just a bill on the hill.
Like, are you just praying?
Yeah, you go to Congress and hope that it passes, that the Steelers are going to be blessed. No, I mean, I get it, but I don't. It's kind of a dumb question. I don't appreciate you asking it this morning, but since you did, I'm going to go ahead and entertain it.
I think it's a dumb question because it's a good question.
Well, I mean, I'm still hoping for functional quarterback play because their roster is constructed in such a way in which it's never very old. They do a very good job of staying just young enough, but not being married to old.
Fair.
Drag me down contracts.
Bad money, yeah.
So for whatever the reason, the part of the reason they're always in the middle of the pack is because their cap space is always just good enough to like be competitive, but never really enough to spend big in free agency. People always talk about, well, the Steelers never spend in free agency. Their cap hasn't been
great.
Hasn't been great.
Yeah.
Right, for them to go out and make a ton of moves. But since again you did ask me for whatever the flipping reason is,
I explained the reason.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so what I would say to that is I like the way that they're doing it, and I just hope to get better quarterback play because they don't have a ton of weak spots. Yeah, they need a corner, another one probably.
But it's a pretty good roster.
It is a good roster.
Yeah,
it is a good roster. So. I'm waiting for a Purdy moment, or maybe it's
like a Dak moment, even because
I don't foresee a Dak moment. I see more of probably a Peyton Manning year one Broncos kind of moment.
Gotcha. Okay,
from somebody.
Yeah, probably not one of the two guys on the roster.
Because I don't ever want them to be in the top 10.
Right, to pick a good quarterback.
Yeah, so it's just too hard.
Yeah,
I mean they tried it with Pickett and
that didn't work.
Yeah, and he's now.
Well, they had the worst possible year to have that, to be in that situation, right? To be able to pick a first round
and had to go with,
because he was the only guy that was even close to a first round talent in that draft, right? Yeah. And so, I guess my question is: are you hoping for? So you're either hoping for late career, like
I think
second team quarterback.
I think they can win the division, so I'm okay with where they're at right now.
Okay. But
I get it. It's a monster division.
But they probably can't win the Super Bowl with the quarterbacks they have.
I don't know.
Okay. You think maybe?
You got there with yours.
Yeah, Brock Purdy's the second coming, though. Of Tom Brady, not Jesus.
Could he win at Colorado?
Brock Purdy, no. Neither could Jesus. Not while Deion's still there. That comment got a lot of run yesterday.
It should be a T-shirt. I wanted to hit Josh up. But sometimes he's slow in getting back to me. I don't know, man. He must be.
That's rude.
No, he's busy.
That's fine.
He's a funny dude.
Coming up on the show today, I mentioned earlier.
We really gonna set the lineup
in the first segment?
Hey, do you want to know how you? Like, I got a buddy that's calling me right now.
Yeah.
Who apparently doesn't like me well enough to know that I'm on air.
Yeah, I always.
But we got into the Lincoln sports scene yesterday, and I mean, we took deep dives.
Yeah.
Because the May 1st list just came out. And his son he's got a chance to be really good. So we were just talking about where everybody landed.
You're going to be shocked by this, but another kid went to Millard South.
Oh yeah, B. Walsh. Yeah. They got everybody. Listen, man. It's good to be it's good to be the other team.
And
everybody.
If you guys play at any point this year in the playoffs or whatever, I don't know if they're on your schedule this year.
They're not.
So you play in the playoffs. You know what everyone's going to say?
What?
Oh, Westside recruited all their players.
Yeah.
They will.
Aside from what the dad, listen, if we did half of the commercializing of a program that some other schools do, oh man, it would be anarchy.
I'm just saying.
You got do like. Come on, man. I got receipts, and I'm not tripping. Like I just.
Listen,
you got to do what you got to do, man.
If you go beat Millard South in the playoffs, they'll be like, oh, it's because they recruited all their guys.
I'm not going to say a word.
I know you are, but that's what everybody else is going to say.
I'm not going to say a word. We're going to line it up and play and see where we're at because you give yourself no wiggle room with this roster.
You really don't.
You better win.
You absolutely should. Much like the Nets with KD and James Harden and Kyrie. Oh, wait a second. Brian Edwards coming up at 8:45. Michael Bruntz at 9. Jesse Rogers from ESPN at 9:45. We will get into some nonsense today. Some of it might be sports related. Coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We're already killing it this morning, DB, because I got the lineup out in the first segment.
Yep. Progress. Progress.
We talked some sports.
Yep.
And this may or may not turn into a Sopranos rewatch review show.
Yeah.
As I can say, and you talked about one of my favorite episodes on TV ever, so.
Yeah. I'm going to have to really watch that.
It's really
But
good.
I know what I'm going to need to do, so it's okay. I have to go to IMDb and get the cast of characters because there's a lot. You can only have so many Jimmys and Ralphies and Tommies and
without getting confused.
Yeah.
You really got to have like a
Giamacci,
like a
Gambino,
like a flow chart.
Yeah.
No, everybody's like, okay, who's actually you're gonna have like the FBI chart where it's like, okay, Tony's at the top here, and then we got Junior, and we got Chrissy, and we got Ralphie, and then we got a couple of guys named things that I can't say on the radio. That's okay though. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
it'll be all right. It's gonna be all right.
I'm kind of excited.
It's a great show. You're gonna enjoy it.
My buddy just clapped back at me with the
guy that just called you.
No.
Okay.
No. He we did a thing a couple months ago, and we have a guy that does graphics for us. He coaches. And he put something out on Twitter to show whatever it is, accomplishments or whatever.
Mhm.
You know, like it was a bunch of stats. And he photoshopped it on a billboard. I forgot to tell you this because I thought it was ridiculous. So he photoshopped it on a billboard, and I retweeted. I was sitting next to you, and you know, only one. I only got the one. You know, because people don't. They know. Like if you say something to me, you better be squeaky clean, right? So you be right.
Yeah.
So I don't get a lot of pushback.
Well, nonsense.
No, I mean, one of my buddies tried it, and I had to actually give him student data and statistics and stuff like that. So most times people don't want to play that; they just want something to cry about. So anyway, I was like, man, this looks pretty good, and people thought it was a real billboard. No, listen, my AD called.
Yeah,
was like, hey, I said, I know I retweeted it. That wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just got a call from such and such. I'm like, it's Photoshop. It's Photoshop.
It's not a real billboard, guys.
Yeah, like come the heck on. Like
you gotta do a little better.
Man. And folks, like just chill. Don't poke, because I don't it's fine. Like do your thing. But let's don't go looking, because again, we just keep receipts, man. It's like there's messages, there's text. Can we do this? Can we do that? What do you think about this? Nah, man, like stay over there. You do.
You guys do your stuff.
Yeah, whomever. Like just do your thing.
Do your stuff. We're gonna do our stuff.
Because usually when those things happen, it runs through somebody that I probably know.
Yeah. I mean, typically, you know a lot of people, so that helps. All right, I've walked in public with you before. That's I know.
Let's go to grocery store together.
No, we were out in Lawrence together. I know,
dude.
You gotta keep the head on a swivel.
I hadn't
man.
been there in a couple of years either.
Yeah, it was a pretty sweet spot. So this is a couple days old, but I still wanted to get through it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, I went back last night. Yeah. In my infinite free time between basically watching The Sopranos on TikTok. There's a lot of stuff we don't even sniff.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we don't get to. But there was I wanted to, because I want to get into
baseball. I know you're not gonna say that. I'm kidding.
No, we'll get into baseball later. Because we got two baseball heavy guests in the 9:00 hour. We'll get to baseball.
I know what you're doing. It's called pacifying.
What, by throwing you some baseball guests?
No, like just keeping me at bay and getting me by until I get what I want.
Yeah.
It's childish.
Is it going to work?
Well, so far. Give me another 10 minutes.
No, so I wanted to get to Raquan Buckley. He transferred, one of the only two dudes, scholarship guys to transfer out of the program this spring, and ends up committing to Michigan State. And I've been having a hard time processing how to feel about transfers in this kind of new age of Nebraska football, where not that many guys are leaving. And to be fair, in the context of all the Dion and Colorado stuff with the transfers, because on like the initial blush, my thought is, okay, Buckley going to another Big Ten school, a Big Ten school that's been better than Nebraska for the last handful of years. That makes me feel so like against previous staffs, that would have made me feel some kind of way. Like, what did you mess up with this guy? What went wrong? Why is he leaving for a school that's been better than you? And then, but I think about it with this staff and what I think the offensive line room is, and the defensive line room for that matter, because he's been on both sides of the ball. And I'm like, I kind of think good for him. Like, good to find a good landing spot.
You talking about is this your vantage point of his landing spot wanting the best for him, or is this what you think Nebraska's ultimately after when a guy lands somewhere?
This is from a fan standpoint.
Okay.
Because Nebraska, I believe, wants the best for him and is thrilled that he ended up at a Power 5 school, even if it's, probably would have preferred not in conference, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time as a fan kind of processing, like what to feel about this situation, because if he's good enough to play at Michigan State, part of me is like, well, shouldn't he should be good enough to play here. Why are we letting a guy like this go? But then there's part of me that's like, hey, the staff's been really good. Not a ton of guys have left. I kind of want to trust him, and I like that room already. You know what I mean?
Well, I think so there's a couple things. By the way, did you see where Chief Borders is going?
I didn't yet. I missed that one.
Where'd I tell you I bet he ended up?
I don't remember.
UCLA.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we had two boo-boos that day that we shouldn't have said out loud that I think both are going to be true.
What was the other one?
I'm not saying.
You already said it out loud once. Internet's forever already.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Man, I was scrambling. Hey, it's not funny. It is so not
You're
funny.
like, oh, is that not come out yet? You're like Googling live on the radio. It's a little funny.
Okay.
No, you know what? Do you know why I think it's funny?
Shay.
No, do you know why?
Okay.
No, do you know why I think it's funny?
I can't.
Is because
why, Ravi? Why do you think it's funny?
A, because it's a little funny to see scramble, like a little bit. But B, so there's this, I'm sure you're aware of it, because there's this old reputation of you where people are like, oh, he never says anything. He just hints around or whatever. And here you are just like saying stuff on accident that you really actually probably.
And that is so old.
It is. It's like 10 years old.
I'm like, golly.
But like some people, it's funny. You know, some people just don't pay attention. You know, it's like Kool-Aid Steve saying the offensive line is bad. It's like, oh, so you just didn't pay attention last year at all.
You can find a way to keep poking him, aren't you?
Yeah, I will. I mean, yeah. I mean, famously with
I want the walleye.
Famously with Trev and Dion, I'm good at letting things go.
And Bo. And Nimhart. And what else do we got that you keep the laundry list?
Sliding
a bunch of BS.
Sliding a grown man's DMs while
Stop
you're playing
it.
like crap. That's a weird move, bro.
Selfish.
Are you a bro guy too? No, with Buckley though.
I use bro like super passive aggressively. I'm like, all right, bro.
Kind of like that with no, because I just used it. Never mind. I'll incriminate myself.
Buddy.
See, I'm catching myself. I'm telling you, man, this whole live thing is new to me. Is this thing on?
It's actually really not.
So I don't know. Why do you look at Michigan State like that? They've been really, really bad. Now they are big Buckley fans, though.
Yeah, because they were on him originally.
And he took one for the team.
Yeah.
Now you may say, well, he didn't have an option if he wanted to play. It was his best opportunity. But a lot of guys, like they're asked, and it's not met with as much. I'll give it a shot.
Openness.
Is sometimes we may.
I mean, in the last 10 years, Michigan State's been better than Nebraska. That's all I mean. Like recently, it's been closer, right? Like after the really good Mel Tucker year, it's been closer. But I look at Michigan State over the last 10 years, they've been better than Nebraska. And so I like mentally have a hard timing. Like, should we?
I would be curious outside of that year to take a look at the records.
You know what? We've got a break here. I might just do that.
Yeah, because I remember, the Pay Tucker year, 1 year.
Yep. I think if I go back 10 years, I get.
But
the
you're not going to
year.
get much after 13. I'd be curious. Now, Nebraska can barely get over 500 though. So that's.
I think. Well, I mean, that's the point, right? It's how Nebraska's been over the last 7 years.
Where's Jamie? We could do math. Do we need a calculator? Shane, toss me your phone.
I'll say I got a phone here. We'll do a little addition here, and we'll wrap up hour number
8
1.
plus 1 plus 3.
I don't even know what we're doing.
12.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's my guy, DB, here on the Pillar Exterior
Flirting with that loosely.
Stage. What, my guy?
Yep. Flirting with that loosely.
Where are you going, man? Come on.
We talking of doing college baseball yet? No, not yet.
You know what we are doing tonight, though?
I remember I used to have more control of this thing. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, well, I know.
I'm getting old in my old age.
I'm a little sneaky like that.
Yeah,
like I kind of.
It's very.
Like it happens real low key, and then you're like, "Wait, I don't have my hands on the wheel at all."
I know. Listen. That is my little homie. She is old now, Shane. She's like 17 or something.
The perfume and lotion.
It smells delicious. I was
freaking bats.
I was gonna ask him something of substance.
Well, you think of that, and I'll tell our friends here something of substance. Make sure you get out to supernovas.com. Last home match of the regular season tonight, 7 p.m. CHI Health Center. Supernovas.com for tickets. Let's pack that place out for the final home regular season match of the season. Supernovas.com.
Did you watch them on television this weekend?
Against Vegas?
Yeah, it was after something that was on that was good, which I can't remember. But
or Vegas was Monday. Vegas was Monday.
I'm not gonna kid you. I enjoy parts of the radio broadcast too because I like. I like Renee.
Yeah.
She's a very good ambassador for her sport too.
Oh, for sure.
Scott's doing big things. Clearly. How many is that in a row? 34 or 29 or
$1 million? No, I think it's only like 11.
Yeah, it's double digits.
Just like a real casual 11 consecutive state titles.
That's sick.
I wouldn't worry about that.
No?
Because people are just they recruit, so it's fine.
Oh gosh.
Transfer list came out.
It's on the floor of my car too. I had 2 Lincoln people yesterday that I was having conversations with full time.
Yeah.
Like at the same time.
A buddy of mine texted me who he was coaching in the Metro for a while, football. Now he coaches other stuff now, but he texted me about the North South situation yesterday.
Yeah,
they got a lot of dudes. That's all I'm gonna say.
Wow, they're loaded.
Got a lot of dudes.
Do you see the nice weight room? I like their weight room. Would you go lift there?
Bellevue West had a lot of dudes too.
You're not baiting me.
I'm just,
You're not.
I'm just trying to compare and contrast.
Nope.
You get a lot of guys.
I get along.
Division I offers.
Nope.
And
I get along well. Nope. Not doing.
I'm not. No. I'm just. These are just things that happen. They do have a nice weight room though. In that photo,
sweet.
I love a good weight room. I do.
I did like it. I wondered if that was carpet.
I am guessing it was not. I'm guessing it was
like tile, like those volleyball floors that are makeshift.
Probably not the sport court because that's a little too slick.
Oh, usually look at you with the fancy term.
Usually it's
like it's just a compound word.
Sport court.
Okay.
There's no failure in sports.
Moron.
I'm just saying, you're going to come at me like you weren't talking about
Stop
Colorado
it.
the whole time, Steve?
Okay.
I mean, you literally talking about Colorado the entire time, and then you're like, we're not talking about Colorado, moron.
So somebody said, what was the line? I think it's 10.
Is it? I couldn't find it. I
think it's 10.
For Nebraska?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Or is it 6? Wait, that sounds so stupid. That's a big
gap
okay,
there.
I just said that.
Did you know there's I know they in some instances 6 and 10 seem close, but in a spread, that's actually a lot of points, DB.
Oh man.
I mean, you could win by 7.
I wonder what
you
my
could win by 8.
Is. Shane, is it hot in here to you?
You could win by 9. There's a lot of difference.
Better be ready to deal with the heat.
That's a good pull, Shane. That's a good pull, Shane. Oh man, you just want to keep talking about old stuff? Nope. You good?
Yeah. Yeah.
What about new stuff with like a little bit of an old tinge?
Yeah, the fact that Michigan State won 85 games and Nebraska won 61.
Oh, I forgot about that.
You were like scoreboard.
No, I was just like you.
I didn't realize they had 5
10-win seasons.
10-win seasons.
And a couple of there's a 12 and a 13 in there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Padding stats.
I'm just it gets that number up a little bit. You gotta get the dander up a little bit. No, I mean you knew I was right, so that was enough for me. I did. We didn't have to go public with it. That's fine.
I did.
I was gonna let you take defeat and secrecy.
Well, unlike you, I can not wiggle and squirm. I'm gonna take that L squarely on the chin.
Oh, no, I'm getting out of it.
Right there, it's on my chin.
I'm definitely no. So I was.
If you're in the stream, it's got to be classic.
Oh yeah. The mannerisms and stuff are another level to this thing.
Who said yesterday that I was singing? Was it my butt? I think it might have been Baby Feet. He said
that you were like frozen.
He goes. He said he can just somehow mess up electronics without even trying, or technology. Yeah, I think it was Eric, and I was like, I can't help it. My screen freezes. I don't even want to be on video. Sasha gets mad.
It's true. It's a daily battle.
Well, I find ways to kind of sabotage it, but I can't select.
Either you crack this thing or you get cracked.
Exactly. I'm not like Tabitha. I can't just freeze the screen.
Yeah, because if you don't get on the screen, Sasha will crack you. Coming down here.
You see her whipping her pickup around.
I was going to say
going about 80.
You're off the screen for more about 3 minutes. She's in the parking lot.
I'm getting better.
I'm
getting better.
So the Bo conversation for a couple days ago got had this life of its own on Twitter and turned into it wasn't that they shouldn't have fired Bo. It's because they hired Riley, and they're like, well, Riley was a better coach than we thought he was, and whatever, just bad fit. All these things, right? It's spiraled into this whole thing, which is not what we were talking about, but it's okay. But somebody actually brought up something interesting. It was a coach, Zajac. I apologize if I'm not saying your name correctly. He's out in central Nebraska. Probably listening on Tri-Cities, our friends out there.
Zajac?
What's that?
Is it Ben?
Josh?
Nope.
Yeah.
I bet it's Zajac, though, but keep going.
Probably.
What did Josh say?
So,
hello, Josh.
He brought up something
friends.
that made me think of one of the qualifications you brought up you wanted for Nebraska's head coach. And I'll see if you can figure out which one it is after I read what you said.
Okay.
He goes, he was defending Riley and saying Eichhorst forcing Riley to hire Diaco really kind of sabotaged him in that last year. Probably a fair point. I don't know.
The whole Diaco Kennedy thing was weird, but okay.
I don't know the dynamics of that. I don't know if Eichhorst actually forced him to do that.
I apologize for interrupting you, but when people wear hoods
up
indoors, it weirds me out. Are we sure? Is he good?
Yeah, they're doing some construction stuff in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Not judging them.
As far as I know, we're okay.
Now, if that was me, they'd read signs.
Well,
please take your hoods off.
It's all right.
Don't enter.
I mean, I'm not
It's usually at gas stations, so I get it.
I'm not just willing to beat up an old man. I'll beat up a young man too if I need to for our safety.
Looks like a good dude.
No, I think he's working on something in the restaurant, so I think we're good here. So my question is, so let's assume that's true. I don't know how true it is that Eichhorst forced him or whatever, but I think there was some pressure from Eichhorst to make changes on the staff. My question to you is, can you figure out from that which one of the qualifications that you wanted out of a head coach that Riley didn't have?
I will go with probably it was his best job.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Because if this isn't your best job, you don't take that. You don't allow, because you can't imagine in a million years Matt Rule allowing anybody to tell him what to do with his staff.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
You know why? Because he's been to Carolina. He dealt with a meddling owner and all that kind of stuff and a toxic organization. Not doing that again.
Mm-hmm. You know what's funny about that?
What?
Not to give Mitch some run on his fantastic article with Nebraska's nutritionist, Kristen Coggins. Her background, right? Her pedigree. Because Aaron, it's what he is in my phone. I've said it before. He's fine with it. He asked me the background.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, SEC, South Carolina, the whole Bama, Georgia thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage you to go to The Athletic and read Mitch's article. That's not a shameless plug. It's just that there's 3 people down there that I'm like over the top fans of the non-essential staff that aren't in the recruiting department. So this isn't Vince Ginta. This isn't Avery Gossett. This isn't Keith Williams. This isn't Ryan Callahan.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the other side.
Is Gus in that one or no?
Yeah, Gus is great.
Okay. He's in recruiting. Technically,
and Gus, yeah. So he's in their onboarding services. He's like player relations.
Yeah.
So he's the guy that makes sure you know what the heck you're doing. I like Gus because he works like he's parenting.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right. Like,
yeah, that would resonate with you.
Yeah, he's a real one.
Yeah.
He's the guy. That's who checked Caleb.
Yeah. That's right.
So anyway, I have this strange affinity, and I told you after we were down there a couple of Tuesdays ago, like I could have stayed in her office the whole time. I remember I told you a story about the vitamins and doing the DEX scan and the labs and body weight and skeletal systems and how she wanted the weight room, how she wanted the serving line. And she told a funny story. Now, keep in mind, I have seen her for a year and a half. I've seen her almost as long as she's been here. We'll hold that thought because she's unbelievable. And I'll tell you why and why you need to take that deep dive to go see Mitch and read Mitch's article on The Athletic.
We'll be back with that, talking about Kristen Coggins, the nutritionist at Nebraska.
And whether it's the best job or not. This is where I'm going. It's going to make perfect sense to what you said.
We'll bring it back around to the Riley rule, the best job you've ever had. And I'll be honest, Nebraska's a pretty good job, so it's hard to have had better jobs than that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you got to be selective there. We'll be back to kick off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Now Drysdale one tight into the circle. Stopped by Sheelovs. 10 seconds left. Canucks can't get it out. Nugent Hopkins to the line. Ekholm trying to shot blocked by Besser. Comes to Drysdale right circle. 2 seconds left to Ekholm at the line. He shoots. It's blocked. And the Canucks win game 1.
Forsling holds as the final seconds will tick away. The fans to their feet, and the Panthers have evened up this series as it gets set to head to Boston for Friday's Game 3. This series is tied at 1. The Panthers take Game 2 by a 6-1 final score.
Well, you know me and DB here on ESPN AM 590, ESPN Tri-Cities. We have a hard time. What's the thumb down? What's going down? I don't know what's happening here.
That looked childish online.
I don't know what does this mean. What that thing do? We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
Is this dude the worst at ebonics of anybody in the continental U.S.?
I'm actually not even. I'm not even doing it by. I'm quoting a show. It's one of the characters. Now he happens to be black, but one of the characters on New
How
Girl.
convenient.
I didn't cast him. One of the characters on New Girl when he's
on what?
New Girl? New, not like his vape, not Nude Girl.
What is New Girl?
It's a sitcom that was on Fox for like 8 years. It's like, it's a, I don't know. It's like Modern Friends.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, dare I ask, or is there somebody you want to blame that on, or are you going to own it because you're secure, or like what are we doing?
No, I like the show. It's funny.
Okay.
I don't care.
I just was waiting for I felt a ... moment.
No, I like it. It's funny. But there's this character who just happens to be black.
Yeah.
That when he gets flustered and he's trying to hit on a girl, he go, "What that thing do?" It's really funny.
Weird.
Anyway,
playing into character types, huh?
I didn't write the show. I didn't cast him.
Kind of like Jason Whitlock having Antonio Brown on.
Kind of like Jason Derulo. I don't know. I don't know. All I know is like we have a hard time keeping the show on the road. But if you're actually driving right now, make sure your hands are on the wheel, your eyes and focus straight ahead. The driver has one job. That's to drive. Message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
Big NDOT guy.
We love the NDOT. Okay, so we were talking about whether Nebraska is the best job a head coach has ever had and how that kind of impacts what decisions that head coach feels comfortable making, right? It kind of came in the context of a weird conversation about Bo and then Mike Riley, but one of my Twitter, I don't know if he follows me or not, but Coach Zajac. How
about Zychek?
Zychek, sure. I don't think it's spelled that way, but maybe.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I don't know. Let's go.
Are you a whole language or phonics guy? You grew up on phonics, right?
I grew up with the commercials. Hooked on phonics worked for me.
Oh my god!
I don't know. I'm not even sure I know how to read. I may have just memorized a lot of words.
I told that to Zoe yesterday, and she was not happy.
I can't read. Coach Zychek, we'll call it that. From Central Nebraska, brought up the Diaco hiring.
He's from Central Nebraska. You better get it right.
Well, I mean, what is he gonna come fight me like Kool-Aid Steve here or what?
Jiminy Christmas.
I'm not worried about it. Anyway, so he brought up Riley being strongly encouraged, we'll call it, to hire Bob Diaco as a defensive coordinator. And my question to you was, if this wasn't the best job that Mike Riley had ever had, does he get bullied into doing things he didn't want to do? And then you brought up Kristen Coggins, the all-star nutritionist that Coach Rule has on staff.
Yes, because so he said something like when he first got here, and we touched on this a couple of months ago when we said, we talked about Nebraska getting ran down from behind during the 90s and kind of fell asleep at the wheel and everybody came. It was just the opposite order, right? Mm-hmm. So what he did when he put his staff together is he went and tried to pick people from the best.
Yeah.
Well, how are they doing it? What are they? So when he found Kristen, that was like part of the deal, right? She'd spent a lot of time on the Southeastern Conference, most recently with South Carolina. She's been around. I think she's a Cal. I'm pretty sure she's Cal Poly in terms of education. But she said something the other day that was interesting about, and what I was going to say before the break is keep in mind, like I travel with her all the time, so I see how I see how it goes, and it's unbelievable, right? It's the meal prep. I've kind of joked about this on air, but I've never really gone into detail, right? The amount of times they eat, the setup, what's ready, like the fresh versus it's incredible, right? You get a real meal leaving the stadium. You eat again boarding the plane, and you can eat again on the plane, like the caloric intake. And I obviously have like case studies, just knowing so many guys down there, and I watch Jalen Lloyd and some of these guys that grow, and I just watch these guys grow on the hoof. So I'm very, very, very fascinated. And there's three people in particular, and I said I'm not the recruiting side, like so not Williams, not Callahan, not Gossett, not
Felder,
not Genta. All people that I'm like, they do a lot of the heavy lifting behind the scenes. So this is on the other side, and those three people are clearly Kristen, Corey Campbell, and Sean Patton.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I really want to hang out with Corey Campbell.
So he's okay.
Can you make that happen?
So it's different, right? So Corey's a guy. He's got a great, he's intense, right? And it's always about strength and nutrition, so
Awesome.
maybe you guys would get along.
Most strength guys are pretty intense.
I mean, he walks fast. He's very intentional.
Yeah.
Patton is a guy that I like because he's in, and not to say that any the other aforementioned aren't, but he's incredibly smart. He's one of those guys that, and he has this certain amount of authenticity where he kind of puts it out there, even if it doesn't show him in the best light. He makes himself vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
Which is the thing I really gravitate towards.
And he's pretty much like, he's the numbers guy
mm-hmm.
On a multitude of levels, just ridiculously bright. And he's very regimented. So
which fits with his background.
He's a guy that I like. But with Kristen, and remember I went into the vitamins and all of that,
mm-hmm.
right? And I was like, I'm just captivated. Like, I want to spend, like, it would be so easy if I was a student athlete. Just do what remember that was the whole do what you're told day.
Yep.
Like, if you just listen to them. It said something I thought was interesting, which is why I'm encouraging you to go read Mitch's article over at The Athletic. She said, do you think I would have taken this job if I couldn't have my own staff? Because I said, I'm like, she's introducing what the people do in her department. And I'm just counting in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, she does this, he does that. Gosh, the executive chef, like, wow, I said, that's a heck of a team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that takes some doing. And part of the delay in them getting what they wanted to do in the strength and conditioning was getting the nutrition part right.
Mm-hmm.
And when she said, you think, like, I wanted my own team, like, that was part of the deal. And I pit that against how I see her on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you, no nonsense, her way or the highway, and she's given complete autonomy to do so, like, it's a thing, right? Take your vitamins. Don't throw that to go away. Sit down and eat. Well, we did this food choice. There's no excuses, right? Why in the design do we not want buffet lines? You know why we had to redo that design? Because I want food served fresh at stations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, that's interesting. Like, just get the green light to do that. Because there's some cost there.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to
structurally, it's a different setup.
100%. Yeah. There's a reason buffets make money.
Yeah, because it's cheaper.
Very much
cheaper to operate.
Very much so.
That's why they can allow you to eat all you can eat, and they still make money.
So, she just wasn't having it. And the attention to detail, and a lot of it was because where she had been. She's worked with the best.
Mm-hmm.
So he went and got the best, right? And sometimes when it's the best job that you've had, especially here,
mm-hmm.
and I've said this for, almost 20 years, because I've just seen what it does to coaches. It can spoil you. You're blessed with a tremendously loyal fan base that is so supportive. It's almost ridiculous,
mm-hmm.
right? They've operated very well, for all the slack some of our athletic directors have. There have been some that have been very, very savvy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't get part of Nebraska's budget windfall without I-course personality,
mm-hmm.
right? you can eat the meat and spit out the bones.
He may not have been good at much else.
The meat part was fiscally, he's fairly tight.
Yeah.
Right? Nebraska was in a good spot when Moose took over heading into COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have certain foibles, this place isn't really going to be good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have to be somebody that is just a grinder by nature. So go ahead.
Well, and I think there's two bad directions it can go if this is your best job. Either you get spoiled
mm-hmm.
by all the trappings of it, whether it's the fan support, whether it's the money, whether it's all the things that people shower and praise upon you or whatever, right? All the Disneyland of it, as Coach Rule calls it, right? That's one way it can go. The other way is, I think what happened with Mike Riley is there's like an intimidation of the place,
100%,
right?
100%.
Where you are willing to acquiesce some things
mm-hmm.
because you're like, oh, I've never
just happy to be here.
I've never done a job this big before. Yeah. I don't. Maybe they're right. Maybe I do. Yeah. Like maybe my guy was it Banks, the D coordinator. Maybe my guy can't hack it. Maybe maybe I do need to go get somebody who's been a DC at a national title game or whatever. Like, there's an intimidation there, which ironically enough is I think what you liked about me is I think a lot of people get intimidated by you when they do a show with you. And I obviously do not. And so like when it's like, it can happen in all walks of life. It's not just football jobs, right? Where you either get spoiled by what you have or you're intimidated by what you're walking into.
Yeah, it's just not fun talking to people that don't have any conviction.
And you stop doing what the thing that got you there, right? Or you stray away from that. And I think like Riley's a good example of the intimidation. I think Frost was a good example of the spoiled by the trappings of the job. And then Rule's the guy who stays to his convictions. Those are like the perfect 3 examples of what we're talking about.
And it's not, and it's, so I just go back to the deal. And if you watch him operate, and this is kind of a real-time case study, I wonder because he hires young, right? And he's known for that. Why? Because he enjoys coaching those guys and gals so
coaching his coaches
hard, right? Because part of what he wants them to understand, hey, if I'm elevating you, I am not going to allow you to be like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like if I've empowered you and you're on payroll,
it's just the next thing.
It's just, hey, you got work to do.
Yeah.
Don't, you know what I mean? And that part I really, really like, because that's hard. That's hard to do.
Because that's one way to avoid the trappings or the intimidation is to get them young.
100%.
Right. So
but if you get them young, you have to be a very good model leader. Yes.
Yep.
You have to be willing to do that.
Which is, it's funny you bring up Kristen Coggins
Yeah.
because I feel like
she's on. Man, I'm telling you.
I feel like what he did with support staff is what people wanted him to do with the assistant coaches: go out and pluck the.
Yeah,
best.
let's not act like everybody was tickled with the coaches
They
he
weren't.
hired. They weren't,
right?
And all of a sudden, we don't even talk about that.
Hasn't been
anymore.
spoken about in at least a year.
We didn't even well, he knew this guy, and where were the? And I'm like,
the only guy that's gotten any problems is Satterfield. And again, we got the surgeon analogy from Coach Rule last week. That made a lot of sense. Now,
and I'm telling, and you knew I was on board anyway. And I could totally fall on my face and not be right, but I've liked Satterfield from the jump just because I needed somebody with some conviction.
Yeah,
right. Like if you're this fickle leaf blowing in the
wind, that's a dude that's not getting swayed.
Man, he couldn't give
a rip.
Nope. And not in it for anything other than to do his job well in the kids. That's probably my favorite thing. It isn't about the accolades.
Yeah. It kind of, it seems like, to be riding with Coach Rule.
Well, that's
like, it seems like Sat's a guy that's like, he's going to ride with Coach Rule.
Yeah. And I don't listen, it may not, I don't know what's going to happen on offense. I'm just saying the key ingredients that you need if you want to be a functional organization, like you have to be able to do. I remember I was having this talk. This is a long time ago. I was over at 118, and we were talking about like personality traits and skill sets and stuff. And he kind of he diagnosed something early. He's like, the reason that we can have these quick conversations and stuff is because we're both quick processors, and we kind of have this ability to get what we want out of conversation. So we have to be careful, but we surround ourselves with people that can give us. He didn't say pushback, but like you need some peers or people
that aren't going to roll over.
You need that to not only to grow, but to just keep you in line,
best out of you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just funny because I was like, when you said about hosts and stuff, like that is the thing that I gravitate towards. We either have to be, that's not important, but that's just what I gravitate towards. It's not like I want people that never agree with me, but I do like to learn. So I want to be around some folks that
at least make you think differently.
Yeah.
Or make you think about things in a way that maybe you wouldn't have
on some other type level. So when I'm watching this staff unfold, and again, I don't know, again, they may win 5, they may win 6, they may win 8. I don't know. I just know, like, if I'm looking at the framework of the house, and they're getting ready to do the wood floors or whatever. Like, I know that I like the foundation because there have been so many coaches that have come here and have either tried to do the masking, like just do the windows or just get
trying to flip the house,
just
right? They're just like, oh, hey, we're gonna make it look pretty, but we're not fixing it.
We've heard coaches say, nope, I got to check for termites. I want to see what the infestation is. We got to tear this thing down, but have panicked because they didn't get off to the start that they wanted to, and then you felt pressure.
Yeah.
You didn't stay with
the course,
the demolition project.
Because listen, if you're stripping that thing down to its studs, it's not going to be in livable condition for a minute.
Yeah,
like that's what it is.
And that's one of the things that I wish that some previous guys would have said. Right? This is where we're at.
Yeah.
And so, what do I gravitate towards now?
Right, we're 5-7 until we're not anymore.
100%. You got to earn the right.
Yeah.
To you got to earn the right to go play Minnesota. People aren't just going to show up and roll over. He said
there are no games you should win anymore.
I can't remember. That's awesome. Can't remember who they were playing, but I remember the conversation about this next stretch. And we were doing the walk around the field. Because it just so happened I do a pregame with Jess, and it's always about the same time because of the show, and so we're on the field. And I always like to go see Brent. I like to go hang out with his son, and I'm like, hey, where's your dad? He says, oh, he's got getting laps in. He's got the big oversized hoodie. So then I knew that was kind of his routine. So and he'll just say, hey, walk with me, right? So we're doing stuff before the game, and I asked him how he felt. And he said, these next whatever today, it's how I felt all season. If we believe and we stay looking at the driver mirror as opposed to the rearview mirror and take care of the football, we can be in every football game. If we let checking in the rearview mirror get us distracted on how we're supposed to be driving, he said every game's going to be a dogfight. And that was his summation for the stretch, even though that was probably like game 4 or 5, if I can remember right. Because we were still fresh on the quarterback development talk and stuff. And it turns out he was is exactly right.
They couldn't take care of the ball, and every game
was about the same.
Yeah, every game was a dogfight because they couldn't take care of the ball.
So it's just like, and who it was? It was Michigan. I remember now. Because it was a tough opponent, and I remember being taken aback that he didn't shy away from the big bad team in town.
Yeah,
he's like, I think this game will go like the rest of the season, right? We play our brand of ball, and it was he's just really matter of fact. And so
that difference between Michigan and the rest of the schedule is when you make those mistakes, Michigan was taking advantage.
You pay the price.
Yeah, you get zero.
Yeah, you don't turn the ball over at midfield and then they don't score because sudden change keeps them from getting points like Nebraska did against lesser opponents.
You get zero freebies against Michigan.
Yeah, you're late.
Yes, sir.
You're late getting to the half and a ball's underthrown. They catch it.
Yeah,
and it's a touchdown.
Yep.
Right. They slip off a tackle.
It's going for 6.
And you get creased.
Yeah. That was the difference.
Right.
Because you look at the score and you're like, oh, that game didn't go like every other game. It's like, yeah, it actually did. Just other teams were not equipped to take advantage of Nebraska's mistakes the way that Michigan was.
And that's kind of where I got the boa constrictor reference from Michigan. But, back to Kristen and building this staff, the fact that they have expertise, because we talked about this in other facets with him, it's cool to bring on smart people, right? That's obviously what everybody aspires to do. The hard part is actually letting them do their job.
Yeah, a lot of people have a hard time letting go of the reins.
It's like strength and conditioning is strength and conditioning. He has 2 things, right?
You know who knows more about strength and conditioning than Coach Rule? Coach Campbell.
Yeah, he lets him. He
lets him do his job.
I got 2 things, right? I want guys to be at a bench because I think there's something to looking strong. Like, and I told you about that. I thought it was fantastic.
Man after my own heart.
But a contrarian to some new age level of thinking where people will tell you that it's an overrated deal. But he admitted it's psychological.
Yes.
He didn't say anything about the physical functionality of it.
Hey, this translates to football.
He said this is a psychological thing because I think there's something to
100%.
when you feel like you're strong.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. And the other thing is bench, and I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
He said outside of that, we don't mess around.
Was that trap bar deadlift?
I can't remember.
I thought that's the thing you told me before, but
and I just remember, Menor was like, I could just see him nodding in affirmation.
Yeah.
Right. He goes, outside of that, I don't know. Hey, Corey, what are we doing today? Hey, what did Kristen say? Like, that's hard, especially for somebody that has their pulse on every part of that program.
It's also really hard for coaches in general because most coaches are control freaks.
So do you remember, and again, people can't stand context, but remember the whole Kennedy, Schmidt, Bo lifting, my guy, like, well, they're only doing and I say Schmidt just because of the disciple train, but they're only doing what Bo's telling them to do. And I'm like, because that's when lifting was a thing. Are they lifting the way that, do you remember this? And people would, is that what Bo wants them to do? And I'm like, you guys are missing the point. Like, that's not, he can just tell you what he wants the finished product to be. But that's why we had such consternation over the body types between year over year, right? Because it wasn't real smooth. And so if you're asking me about the framework of the house, I don't know how it's going to look when it's fully furnished. I just know that thing isn't blowing over when the wind kicks up.
Yeah. Which is all you can really ask for at this point.
That's
Year
it.
2, right?
Because you're dealing with the single greatest variable in life, and that's people.
Young people especially.
Yeah, it's even worse.
I mean, I know some old people are pretty unpredictable too,
but I think it's because of the experience and not being overwhelmed by what this place is,
because
allows people, because
it's not his best job.
They've been some other good places. They're not overwhelmed.
And that's hard to do. It's hard not to be overwhelmed by what Nebraska throws at you, whether that's positive or negative.
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming. Jack, hang on here. We will get to your call coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're halfway through the show on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. And I wanted to get to Jack's phone call here. Wanted to talk
Cactus Jack?
I have Captain Jack?
Cap
Sparrow?
Well, yeah, there's Captain Jack. What other Jacks are there? Daniels.
Jack McKeown?
Jack Morris.
Jack McKeon?
Jack McKeon.
Blackjack Morris?
Good one.
What
if it's just Jack? Jack was in the cartoon. Who was Jack?
Jack Buck.
Is that Red?
Jack
Rugrats?
might have been Incredibles. The Incredibles.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It is. It's the Incredibles.
Do you think Jack is incredible?
I don't know. We'll see how the call goes. Jack, you're with us here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. What's going on?
Hey, guys. Good morning. Hey, I may be the only person in this state that's interested in this.
Oh, you're not. You're not. I promise, because I'm paying attention.
I have constantly been keeping up with what's going on in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, read two articles, and they were polar opposites.
Mm-hmm.
One said, okay, Florida State lost in their North Carolina trial, I guess, to exit the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
But it's under appeal in federal district court in Tallahassee.
Yep.
Now, just wonder how they're going to rule. And that comes up next month. If Florida State leaves, Clemson says they're gone.
Well, Clemson's going through a pretty similar process right now.
Yeah, they are.
Right.
And Pickens County.
And according to one ESPN article I read, that there are ACCs already in negotiations with both schools about what that exit fee might cost. If they go, the ACC is cooked.
Yeah.
Because in ESPN's television contract with them, if they have exit schools if schools exit like Florida State and Clemson, that wrecks their TV deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's in the contract. So if that happens, there won't be any. The one article I read had Florida State going to the Big and SEC going and Clemson going to the SEC and Miami going to the Big 12.
Yeah.
Now, the only problem is neither one of Clemson or Florida State are AAU schools. The only schools that make sense to the Big Ten that are AAU schools is North Carolina and Virginia. They're both in the AAC.
I think there's something to North Carolina in the Big Ten. So I'm tracking with you.
So if all that comes to pass, and then the other article I read had said, hey, forget about what the bow ties think in the Big Ten on this accreditation thing. The big money is television. What television wants, that's what the Big Ten's going to do. Now, I don't know which one I tend to believe the most. The way everything's gone, you think they're going to follow the money, but the bow ties may win out on that accreditation thing. And also said that Nebraska needs to get accredited again, or they may be on a slippery slope in the Big Ten. So, what do you guys think? And if all that happens, then what the hell is Notre Dame going to do?
Yeah, so
they got to go someplace.
Yeah, I appreciate the call, Jack. We're all over this. You'll be surprised. Like, hopefully, this is why people tune in, because hopefully,
versatility.
We have a little bit of range. But so here's the thing. But like the dirty little secret that's not the dirty little secret is the thing that's he's right. Jack's right. The thing that's ultimately going to drive this deal is going to be the television, the television ratings and the revenue, because that ultimately leads to profits for Fox Sports. So if a school is going to be profitable for Fox Sports, let's take Clemson for instance, they are definitely attractive to the Big Ten. And I get that, independent of the AAU. But the dirty little secret about Clemson is if you do your homework, which we try to, and you can look this up because it's pretty factual. Clemson ranks better than 3 Big Ten schools currently in academic rankings and is significantly higher than Oregon. Which is now, well, I said this before and it flew under the gosh darn radar.
Yeah.
I said out loud on this show, you guys keep harping on this AAU thing, and I get it. You don't want to be the only one that's not.
Oregon skating by on.
But how is Oregon
not
in good
status?
Standing?
Yeah.
Do you know why, Ravi? Because they're good.
Yep.
That's why.
Yep.
So Nebraska was forced with one of two things. Until they win, you better be like everybody else and get that AAU accreditation, because you don't want to be the only. But you'll be afforded a little more leeway if you actually start bringing something to the table in wins and losses, because it absolutely matters. And I know we said it in passing.
And if you've got some peers that aren't also AAU accredited.
I'm telling you, Clemson's rankings, listen, you're better than 3 Big Ten schools, and it's higher than Oregon. Like that's not.
Oregon is an AAU school in name only.
Yeah,
they are not. I don't know that anyone would look at Oregon
Clemson,
as.
And Clemson brings tier 1 value.
Yes.
Right. So
absolutely.
I just like that's not even.
Like he's right that North Carolina and Virginia academically make a lot of sense. I don't know that Virginia brings a ton of value from a television dollar standpoint. North Carolina does, if for no other reason because of the basketball pedigree. And they're good enough at football.
I do think the ACC is in big time trouble.
I do too, because these things
and don't be swayed. You got to get in the minutia a little bit with the grant of rights. Don't be swayed by that buyout number.
But these things this is not going to go their way in court.
You talking about
for the ACC?
Oh, I know.
We've seen,
and Clemson's case is still staying in Pickens County, right?
Yeah, I believe so. So far, it hasn't gone to appeal yet. But this, I mean, especially
because they're going to win on the whole sovereignty thing. They haven't,
especially federally, they're not going to mess around with this. So Florida State's going to be free to go. Clemson's going to be free to go, and then the rest of the ACC will use that as precedent. And honestly, unless the ACC negotiates a special buyout with Clemson and Florida State today before those rulings comes down, because if the rulings come down and give precedent to all the other schools, it's over.
Yeah, and the other thing is, he asked about Notre Dame, which is interesting because I had to go back. My original train of thought was, so I'll do real time. I won't just say, oh, we were right because it's at the end. So real time when they're voting on playoff expansion. And I'm like, man, conference affiliation is going to matter. But you need a unanimous vote to take this thing to 12. Notre Dame obviously has a vote. Notre Dame voted to move to 12. So my conventional wisdom was, oh, shoot, Notre Dame's going to join a conference. Right?
Yeah.
And then Swarba, like just a couple days later, it was, hey, our independence is more valuable now than ever. And I didn't know if I should take that as isolated or he meant like the bargaining power for, profitable distribution. But I don't think that it's any coincidence And I said this to AC when this first started, because he understands legalese, obviously. And I was like, NBC was the key player. Now, this was before NBC was in
bed with Big Ten.
Was in the TV rights package. Yep. And I said, well, they got one more. I can't remember what the years were. 1 or 2 more years left on the deal. Maybe this is what makes NBC and Peacock a player now, and they're just waiting for the go-ahead, right? But because why would Notre Dame concede the top 5 spots? Because as it stands right now, they can't be higher than a 6, right?
Which means they're not. They can't be higher than. They can't be in the top 6, so you can't get a bye.
That's what I'm saying. They can't be higher than 6.
You can't get a bye. Is what they're currently stated.
I just don't know why they would agree to that unless it's gamesmanship publicly, because they know that they're a valuable commodity.
Yeah, and from a leverage standpoint, maybe it helps them out in terms of not having to join a conference yet, of like, hey, we're still included in this package, so we don't have to join a conference. I don't know. I do think they eventually are forced into that situation. But real quick here, in terms of the academics, Florida State, at least according to U.S. News and World Report, which puts out kind of the preeminent college rankings in the country, they're higher than Rutgers, Penn State, Iowa, Indiana, Minnesota, Michigan State, Illinois. So that's half of the current Big Ten right now. They're above Oregon, obviously, because we just mentioned Oregon's not great. So if you're talking about academic standards, I know the AAU makes a big deal about being the AAU and whatever. Florida State is at worst middle of the pack academically in the Big Ten, at worst.
Mm-hmm.
So like, take the AAU for what you will, and we'll take Brian Edwards coming up next year on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. will be back.
It's got to be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, Vegas insider, senior handicapper, and fan of the cold Budweiser bottles, Brian Edwards.
It's got to be touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Brian Edwards.
I don't really love it.
Brian Edwards.
The way they're using the cream cheese to butter the bagel.
Brian Edwards.
I'm going with the cowgirls.
Here is Brian Edwards.
We're wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. Before we get to Brian Edwards real quick, I got to tell you about Durkin Designs. It's finally getting nice outside. If you need to get your yard, your property cleaned up a little bit, make sure you give Durkin Designs a call. They've got everything covered from pavers to retaining walls, water and fire features, lighting, cleanups, maintenance, whatever you can think of. Give them a call, 402-779-4444. That's 402-779-4444. And give Durkin Designs a call for all of your outdoor needs. Joining us now is our guy, Brian Edwards, our Vegas insider. B, what's going on, man?
Good morning, gentlemen. Well, how about that ball game last night? That was a good one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I asked Sean Devaney, who covers basketball nationally for the NBA, who's his closest Jalen Brunson comp, right? A guy that kind of toiled with a franchise for a few years, then kind of got the autonomy to do his thing. Do you know who his comp was?
I'm trying to think of one in my mind right now, and nothing's coming.
There's not a lot.
He said the only one that he could think of is Isaiah Thomas.
The second Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah. Second round draft pick, kind of bounced around a little bit. And
Phoenix for a little while.
Then was kind of given the keys.
Yeah.
To do what he does. He's incredible for what he actually is.
And hey, there for a minute, like he was been so unfathomably hot that his over-under on his prop last night was 37.5, and he missed the whole second quarter and the last 3.5 or something like that of the first quarter. Mm-hmm. And there for a second, early fourth, I was like, is he gonna get there tonight? Obviously, yeah. he didn't, but man, because once he started heating up, yeah, and I thought Carlisle made a big mistake going away from Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell. Those guys were playing so good, and then you look at the box score, and their minutes are just so much less than everybody else. But I still think Indiana is going to make this a good series. And I'll tell you one thing, Madison Square Garden season ticket holders, they are not getting cheated in this postseason. Man, if they had some good ones.
I think they're happy to just have anyone's in the postseason.
Sure, that too.
It was a pretty good stretch there. They didn't have any meaningful basketball this late in the calendar. As we get into some of your picks for the week, you've got Boston coming in again against Cleveland. You like a total there?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the team total to go over 113.5. And if you want to get aggressive, I'm not against it in the first half either, which actually I'm not even looking at it. The other night I had it at 58.5. It got to 59 with more than 2 minutes left, but then they were stuck on 59, but it won. So Boston's played Cleveland at home 3 times this year. They've scored 120, 120 again, and 116 in their opening round against Miami. 2 of the 3 home games, they had 114 and 118. They fell short that game. They lost game 2. And so those are really the only stats I've got to support it. But I just think Boston's offense, and, if Jared Allen doesn't play again, that doesn't help Cleveland's defense. And Boston's offense is just rolling. So instead of laying the big number or anything like that, I think that's the way I'm going to attack it. Over 113.5, their team total.
So I read a stat where that was the 48th time. So 48 games where they've been up 20 or more in the course of a game this season. Do you remember this kind of? Dominance? I mean, Golden State.
Not really. And Mitch Moss threw out a stat.
I mean, were they drumming teams like that? 20 is a lot.
Apparently, they've had more games with a 30-point lead than they've had games they've been down by double digits this year. That was the stat that Mitch Moss shared. He said their play-by-play guy has been doing a good job of tweeting it out. I forget his name though. No, I don't remember any dominance like this lately.
I mean, it's probably the Warriors the first year with KD.
Yeah.
They were drubbing people by the time they got to the end there. But that's the closest one, at least in the playoffs here. Speaking of teams that are doing a little bit of drubbing as well, Oklahoma City, you've got as a favorite over Dallas. You like their trend to continue to beat up on the Mavericks a little bit?
Yeah, I just don't think Luka's healthy, man. And
he looks awful.
Yeah,
and
I used to just think it was his poor fitness, but he looks worse than normal.
And they've got
he's got Lou Dort on him too.
And they've got guys that can guard him.
Yes, exactly. And OKC, so with that win the other night, they improved to 36-8 straight up, 29-15 against the spread at home. And now they've dating back to the late regular season, they've won 10 in a row, 8-2 against the spread. Not that it matters covering 5, but they haven't tasted an outright defeat since at Indiana on April 5th. And now they've won 4 of 5 head-to-head meetings with the Mavs this year, and they've won every one of them by at least 6 points. One of them they won by 6. I'm pretty sure, I'm not looking at it right now, but pretty sure the rest of them they won by double digits. So I'm going to stick with OKC here, -5. And if things keep going like they are in the West, this young bunch of T-Wolves against Thunder is starting to seem like a pretty fun Western Conference Finals matchup, although still a long way to go.
Yeah, still a long way to go, B, but I mean, I know you don't have the T-Wolves on here today, but man, that team has looked like an absolute wagon. And I don't know how Jamal Murray bounces back from the abuse that he got at the hands, especially of Nickeil Alexander-Walker the other night.
Yeah, and that's another guy that I don't think is 100% healthy, unfortunately, for Denver.
I don't know if he's healthy, but he sure is not playing like he's capable of. And I don't know how much of it's injury and how much of it's the T-Wolves. But last one you have here in the NBA, you've got the Indiana and New York over. Why do you like that one?
Yeah, because the over has now gone 11-2 for Indiana in its last 13. 10 of those have had 232 combined points or more. The first 2 games of the series, they've had combined scores of 238 and 251. And now they've met 5 times this year, combined scores of 266, 236, 238, 251. The one outlier was a 214. Although the number's been going up since game 1. Hadn't been going up enough. I'll go over 223.5 tomorrow night. New York and Indiana. I think Indiana wins tomorrow night, but I was hoping for a smaller number. That 6.5 is a tad too rich for me.
You like some team totals. They're starting to drop numbers and some spreads too. So I know you're kind of tickled, man. You want to hit us with a few team totals in college football? Because so you do have you do have a one team total and a line that you like early. Gosh, it's a big number when Georgia takes on Clemson. Clemson's got to rebound at some point. Have they seen their best days?
I think they've seen their best days because Dabo is ignorantly and stubbornly and knuckle-headedly, if that's a word, refusing to use the portal. They have exactly 0 portal additions this year. They lost 5 starters off their defense that got drafted, and they lost Shipley, their explosive running back. I was not impressed with really Klubnik last year as the QB. And Georgia's laying 12.5 at FanDuel in Atlanta. That's key against Clemson in week 1. It is 13.5 at DraftKings, but 12.5 at FanDuel. If it's 14 or fewer, I like Georgia to absolutely drill Clemson. And I think the narrative going from week 1 to week 2 will be Dabo's stubbornness to not use the portal. So give me Georgia minus 12.5 in week 1. And then the season win total that I like is Ole Miss over 9.5. It's minus 144 for the over at FanDuel, but it's even money at DraftKings to go over 9.5. And it's really just the schedule. The non-conference is soft. They should go 4-0 in non-con. Then they get Kentucky at home. Kentucky will be pretty good, but I like Ole Miss at home there to go 5-0. I think they'll win at South Carolina, so I think they roll into Baton Rouge with a 6-0 record. Even if they lose at LSU, and I'm not saying they're gonna, but let's say that makes them 6-1. They get 2 weeks to prepare for Oklahoma at home. I think they're better than Oklahoma. I think they win that 7-1. They add Arkansas and make it 8-1. Then they get Georgia at home, where they're a 5.5-point dog at FanDuel, a 7-point dog at DraftKings. Not saying they definitely lose, but for conversation's sake, let's say they lose that. They get 2 weeks to prepare for at the Swamp, where they're a 6.5-point favorite. I think they beat Florida, which will be in a murderer's row of 5 games there. And then I think they beat Mississippi State at home, and that makes them 10-2. And again, I'm not surrendering L's at LSU and Georgia at home, but even if they do, I think they go over 9.5.
Hey, B, for a team that's going to probably be in most everybody's top 5 or 6, were you surprised that the win total is single digits? Or is it just more of a reflection of the schedule?
I think it's a reflection of the schedule. Yeah, I mean, the schedule works for them big time. This is the year for Ole Miss, man.
Right.
And your 12-team playoff. I mean, I'm not saying I'm picking them to win it all, but there's no excuse for them not to get to a 12-team playoff.
That's our guy, Brian Edwards, Vegas Insider Beat. We appreciate it as always. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, fellas.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
2-2 to Stokes. Chops that one down in right field for a base hit. That's going to bring home Silva and the Huskers with a 6-2 lead here in the bottom of the 7th inning.
Welcome back. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and for this third hour, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube on the Pillar Exterior stage. And I'm here to remind you to go to provolleyball.com and get tickets for the first ever Pro Volleyball Federation Championship right here in Omaha, Nebraska. Provolleyball.com is your place to go. It's your championship central. That will be next week at CHI Health Center, where you can get tickets starting May 15th is the first match. May 18th is the championship. You can get single session. You can get all session tickets. Make sure you go to provolleyball.com and get your tickets and show people. It's going to be live, CBS Sports Network. Show the country what Nebraska does on these big championships, these big events. You know, get out, support Omaha, not just your Supernovas, but also your city, so we can continue to get awesome events like this at provolleyball.com. Joining us now, he used to be in Omaha, and now he's a Lincolnite, I think. You know, it's all right. We still love him. Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7. What's up, Bruntsy?
How you guys doing?
I think you just wanted to be closer to your cohorts. That's what it was, wasn't it? Was that the gravitational pull of Lincoln?
Yeah, well, they are moving farther away from me. They're like on the fringes now, and I'm like, I'm South Central Lincoln now. That's how we do it here.
Better than LA, you know what I mean?
Yeah, nothing says Watts like Mike Bruntz, man. That's fantastic,
well,
man. There you go.
17th of Van Dorn, stand up. That's what I'm saying.
Bruntz, do you still consider yourself an Omahan or a Lincolnite? Like, where have you changed yet?
Well, I haven't lived in Omaha in over almost 20 years.
Yeah,
I was say since like high school, basically, almost, right?
I never moved back to Omaha after high school, so I guess, and I've been in Lincoln for 13 years now, and 14 years now. So I guess I'm thoroughly a Lincolnite now.
Oh, that's disappointing. It's all right. No, we love our friends in Lincoln, but you know, I'd like to keep the good ones in Omaha too.
All right. So
joining you now on KFOR. Yeah, we're a big Lincoln guys.
That's why we have you here, because I was like, he's a Lincoln guy now. Gotta wait till he's on KFOR.
Well, the only real balance we need is this ding dong's been keeping me at bay because our last hour is backloaded with baseball. So he's like, well, we could just save it for Bruntz. But he and I have been going back and forth on air. So now that I get you, I'm gonna weave in a Caleb Clark question at some point. That's for sure. But I do. Let me just ask you something philosophically, Bruntz, because everybody's going to point to the 8th inning and a couple plays they didn't make defensively, and I get that. But I want to go all the way back to like the 5th inning, and whether we get into the exact specifics of the rotation, like 1 out, go to the bullpen, 2 outs here, that, not necessarily that as much as in an inning like that, where it seems very particular and you have a plan or can look a little impatient. Do you think, did you get a handle on what Nebraska was trying to do with their rotation last night? Situationally? Did it make sense real time to you?
Yes and no. I mean, I think part of, I think they were a little bit, because they used 10 pitchers last night, and it felt like they were a little bit of kind of prisoners to the weekend, I guess, from the standpoint of like Brockett was only going to throw like 40 pitches because I think there's a pretty strong chance you see him on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think they were going to try and pass the bucket anyways. And I think they got a little situational as well. The 5th, are you talking about Clark specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was kind of getting hit a little bit. I think they were probably, I don't know if there was something that they saw that they needed to go and get him as quickly as they did. I thought, they probably could have left Perry in for another batter or two late. It felt like he was throwing okay. But they've kind of gone matchup in the back of the bullpen a little bit more recently. And I think sometimes they were just, I think on some of the guys, it was like, okay, let's just get them in there, get them a few pitches, and then, make sure that they're available for the weekend. But it's hard in college baseball to use that many pitchers and, have it go well. And, you've seen it a couple times in the midweeks for guys that, you've counted on the weekend sometimes just don't have it, or, I don't know if it's a focus thing or what, but, they just gave it up late. And South Dakota State's a team that their offensive numbers, they can hit for power. That's the one thing that they can do. And I mean, most college baseball players nowadays, if you leave 90 up in the zone, they can make you pay. And those weren't cheap home runs they hit in the later innings last night against Nebraska. So, and as much as you want to point to the pitching issues towards the back of the game, I mean, hell, you had bases loaded with 1 out in the first inning, and you only get 1. And Nebraska had a lot of chances in that game to early put it out of reach and wasn't able to do it. I mean, that's kind of, I went back and looked at the numbers after the game, that they're 1-6 in midweeks since the calendar flipped to April. I want to say that they're, I checked it, I was actually surprised that the average was this high, but they're hitting like 270 with runners in scoring position in those 7 games, and they're leaving an average of 9 or 10 a game. So,
you ever seen a team that when they misplay a ball, it comes back to haunt them the way it does Nebraska?
You mean Brockett getting those 10 inning
like what was the
catcher?
What was that?
Yeah, I mean the
8th inning was no defensive gym either.
No, I mean, and that's, you kind of wonder at that point. It's almost a mental thing, It's guys trying not to make mistakes. And I mean, we asked Josh Overbeek about it last night after the game. If like,
is he healthy?
The narrative is out. The narrative's out there. They've heard the narrative. They've been asked about the narrative. like it almost just felt like guys were playing a little bit scared in the late innings, and you can't play that way. I mean, that's how you boot a ball. That's how you almost kind of get luck made for the other team in some ways. So yeah, I mean, they played the hits last night for sure with some of the issues they've had in midweeks. I mean, it's really not just one thing that's been the issue.
All right, let me ask you one other thing because I want to go back to the fifth inning because this kind of set it up. Number one is, do you think Wordley's going to be the closer? And if he is, why do you think the fifth went the way that it did when he came back in the sixth to at like in that juncture of the game?
You got to remind me.
So he came in the fifth. He got the one out, the last out, right? Then he pitches the sixth, and then that was it.
Like you're asking why they didn't just keep rolling with him?
That, or if he's gonna be, you think he's gonna be their back end guy?
I think in an ideal, I think this is the way they would like it to go.
Okay.
I think they would, and it's played out this way a couple times.
Okay.
This season where they like him on Friday nights because there's a chance that if you can get Sears to like the 6th or the 7th,
Mm-hmm.
you can just roll Worsley the rest of the way.
Okay.
You basically have the entire bullpen available for Saturday and Sunday. And, I would be okay with him being the back end guy. I think he's actually been hard enough on both righties and lefties this year. Like his numbers have been pretty good, but I think there's kind of that thing of we're going to set the tone on Friday night with our guy Sears. We can get I think they think he's the best reliever that they have, and I think they'd want to use him earlier in games and try to kind of get an extended outing to kind of really set the tone on Friday night.
Okay.
So I think I haven't been told that that's kind of the idea, but if you just kind of look at the way that they've used him the last month or so, it went from like, okay, he's a situational lefty to, okay, he can give us multiple innings to, okay, he's the first guy out of the pen on Friday nights because we can trust him to go multiple innings and get up and down a couple times. So that's my read on it. We'll see if that changes.
You mentioned Overbeek. How healthy do you think he is or isn't?
I think he's pretty healthy. I think it took him a while to come back from that finger. I mean, I think he was really kind of playing through it. I don't know how comfortable he is as a leadoff hitter. I think he's looked okay at times there, but with not having Brumbaugh in there still, I mean, you've kind of had to shuffle things a little bit, and they're getting Sanderson in the lineup now every night, which I think is great, just given how good he is.
Yeah, I remember a month ago we were like, "Oh, how's that going to play out to get both of them in the lineup?" And we've seen it now.
You just jam them into right field and don't really care about the defense. That's how you do it.
Hey, just like Little League, baby.
It's easy sometimes, right? But no, I mean, I think Overbeek's been fine. I think if you go back to March, we're talking about how great Nebraska was with 2 outs, how great they were with runners in scoring position, and those things kind of go in streaks. And right now, it just feels like it's been such a struggle to get big hits for this team. I mean, they had one hit with runners in scoring position last night. That's something that you got to figure out, because I think they've done a pretty good job actually of setting the table, but they just haven't been able to show anything for it.
We're talking with Michael Bruntz from Husker 24/7. Bruntsy, am I the only one that feels like I'm taking crazy pills the way that college coaches deal with midweek pitching staffs? Because I just cannot, for multiple reasons, cannot see a world in which throwing 10 different guys out there makes any sense. First and foremost, and you hit it at this earlier, you're not going to find 10 guys that pitch well on the same day ever. Just not happening. Right? Full stop. Yep. Never going to happen. Right? So the fewer guys that you have to send out there, in my mind, is an advantage because you've got a better chance of fewer guys throwing well. Second, I know they're like, oh, we're trying to save arms for the weekend. Using 10 guys doesn't seem super advantageous for that, especially when your weekend series starts on Friday. Now, I know some of these guys didn't throw a ton of pitches, But if you're telling me Jackson Brockett can't throw, 60 pitches on Wednesday, have 3 full days of rest, and then relieve on Sunday, like, am I to believe that's really that big of a deal? Because I mean, we've seen it happen a ton. Like, I just feel like none of this makes any sense.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach, and I think Brockett might start on Sunday. I mean, in all honesty, I don't know if it's going to be just a relief thing with them. Like, I could see him just being like, okay, Sunday's yours.
Sure, but you could throw 60 on Wednesday and 60 on Sunday, and nobody's none the wiser. Like, it doesn't, like, you're fine.
Right. What I'm saying is I think they want to leave the door open for like 100 on Sunday if they can. But I think the problem that I mean, you get so exposed with your lack of starting pitching sometimes with midweeks. Because, yeah, I mean, I think if Nebraska was, if you hooked them up to the polygraph and said, what would be your ideal on midweeks? I mean, the ideal would be is that you would have somebody like, let's say, like Clark or Drew Christo or Will Walsh or somebody like that who could basically go and do not necessarily exactly what Brockett did last week with the no-hitter, but a guy that could potentially go in there and give you 5 or 6 on consistently on Tuesday and Wednesday. And this team just does not have that. And
that doesn't seem like a huge ask.
Let me finish. What I'm saying though is that the problem is, and that they've run into, is that you've got guys that can give you 2, but not consistently. And I think sometimes last night I think you could have let guys go a little bit more, and you could have had Perry go a full inning, and you could have maybe stuck with Clark a little bit more. And you try to get to, like, let's say we're going to use like 6 or 7, like max on a Wednesday, versus 10, because it also just kind of gives the feeling of just being a little bit unsettled on the roster, right? If you're just constantly running out there. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think sometimes, especially when you get to this point of the season, it's like you got a month left. You just kind of need to bear down a little bit and throw some extra pitches if you have to, just to get it done. So yeah, I agree with you, Ravi. I mean, I think there's different ways of doing it. I have never loved the bucket brigade approach, because it always feels like even when things are going well, you get into the 6th or the 7th, and somebody inevitably has a bad inning, and that's how you lose a midweek. So
you guys know,
I agree with you.
You know what's interesting, Bruntz? It's such, and I'm sure, like, we probably have to take a deep dive to compare pitching numbers year over year from this year to last year in terms of hard numbers. But you know what Nebraska doesn't do for a team that's kind of struggled out of the bullpen? They don't walk a lot of guys. Like, it seems like they should be more efficient given how few of free passes they actually give up. It's kind of a statistical anomaly.
No, it's funny. I mean, like,
do you agree?
Yeah, they don't walk a ton of guys. I mean, actually, if you go to what Rob wanted to do at the start of the season with the strikeout to walk ratio, I mean, Nebraska's ahead of schedule there by a pretty significant margin. I think last week they were top 25 in whip, and really kind of have been around the zone. I mean, I think in some situations they've kind of been a little too much around the zone. But I think that when you kind of look at some of these midweeks, I mean, they've given up big hits. I mean, thinking, last night,
couple bombs,
2-3 run homers.
Creighton had the big bomb
to Creighton down here, kind of the same way, where you leave one pitch up, and that's all she wrote.
I mean, what was last night, like 6.5 to 1, or I don't know if they had 13 or 14 Ks, but I only had 2 walks. I don't know what that math is off the top of my head, but something like that. There have not been many games this year where they've just really kind of put guys on base a ton, and they, part of that too is even when they've had guys that have gotten a little bit wild, they at least feel like they have arms they can go to, so a guy doesn't have to just kind of sit out there and wear it. So yeah, I mean,
it's been a hard team to kind of wrap your arms around this year, because it's, they started off so hot, the midweek struggles being what they are, and they still, are pretty competitive on weekends. So what do you, how do you kind of fit that type of a team really neatly into a box? I mean, I kept refreshing Warren Nolan last night because I was kind of curious to see how far they were going to drop, because that's a bad RPI loss. And
it ended up being 10 spot. Well, Nolan wasn't up when I first got here, but it's 30, and I think they're 26th in KenPom now.
They were whoever the NCAA uses had them at 24 last night. They're down to 30 today. So that just kind of tells you, I guess, how much they actually did at the start of the season in terms of beating quality teams. But I mean, that's the frustrating part, was that you just you were pretty consistent to start the year, and now you're just kind of it feels like you're just kind of game to game. It's you kind of don't know what you're going to get.
Bruntz, is it putting too fine of a point on this conversation to say, like, hey, if Drew Christo or Will Walsh or Caleb Clark, or like if one of those guys had been who Nebraska either thought they were or needed them to be, that we would not be having this discussion right now?
It would certainly change it, right? I mean, you're still searching for a Sunday starter, and we're in the second week of May right now. If one of those guys could have consistently given you 5 innings on Sunday, that picture looks a heck of a lot different, probably.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like last year.
Yeah. Well, and they've had a guy go 5 innings once on a Sunday. I mean, that's just kind of unbelievable. That you couldn't have one guy just kind of a couple times catch lightning in a bottle and get you through 5. And that's where the Sunday guy and that midweek role, I think, are kind of similar, and that's the problem. I mean, I think they have more pitching depth. I think there's just a particular kind of depth that they're still lacking, and that's not to let the offense off the hook either.
I agree.
You should not you should not have to hold up 4 runs or 5 runs on a midweek. I mean,
they ran 2 guys out last night, Brunsey, that had double-digit ERAs.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it was a guy with a 7.7 ERA and a guy with a 12 ERA and
an 11.
The rate, and then they bring a guy out in the 9th that's throwing 98. Like it was kind of hard to wrap your head around. But I mean, that's a team that got swept by Northern Colorado and gave up almost 40 runs on the weekend. So that should have been a group that Nebraska could have handled.
You'd like to get more than 6 on them, is what you're saying.
This is the one.
What I'm saying.
This is the one time, or maybe the anti-Creighton thing, where I would say, because I got so sick of the they just want it more thing. I don't think that's it. I just think, Creighton was clutch in a lot of key spots against Nebraska, and you got to kind of give them some credit. But this is one time that I think the opponent did not clearly get Nebraska's utmost attention. Like I'll listen to that discussion this week after last night.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
No, that's a fair discussion, I think, after that one. I mean, even Overbeek said, that's the kind of the extra challenge when you play, Summit League teams in the midweek, or if you're Iowa, you play Loras College or something like that. And he said it's kind of like the World Series for those guys, and you can feel the extra intensity from visiting teams. And South Dakota State's played 6 home games this year. Like they are not afraid to go into another team's ballpark and try to win baseball games. I mean, that's the thing that is always kind of remarkable about those teams. To me, like North Dakota State, they played a series at LSU. They don't play home games until May. I mean, those teams are just completely comfortable in those types of situations. And, I think, Nebraska kind of needs to be able to throw that knockout punch early offensively with those types of games, and didn't do it. And then that's how you find yourself trying to protect a 1-run lead in the 8th inning. So, yeah, I mean, I'd listen to that conversation more after last night than, you know, what you saw against Kansas or Creighton, which, you know, are both kind of fringe NCAA tournament type teams. RPI was.
Bruntz, with what's left on the schedule as far as Indiana and Michigan State, what are the chances Nebraska still has of trying to host one of those regionals after last night's loss? Is that just gonzo?
No, I think we can probably put that. I mean, it was.
You were one of the few that wasn't buying into it last week either. There were some other guys that were like hope springs eternal. You told me, you're like, nah, I don't really see it.
I mean, there was an outside chance, and you're kind of you needed Nebraska to get hot. I mean, I guess, you know, maybe you start this weekend and do it. I'll at least entertain that possibility.
Now you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to get like a top 10 regional seed now. At least before last night, you could have been on the back half of a regional seed.
Yeah, well, I was surprised. One of them had them in North Carolina regional with the national 5 seed, which I was kind of surprised by. But I think we can probably put the hosting combo to bed. You turn out the lights, the kids are in bed. So, yeah, I mean, now, you know, you're trying to just win games. You're trying to win series the last two. The Big Ten series and schedule makers, you know, for whatever reason, were able to line this up pretty well the last 2 series weekends where you basically have the top 6 all playing one another, and everybody's separated by, you know, 2 or 3 games. So there's a lot of volatility there still, and kind of what the tournament can look like in Omaha. I mean, if you have a bad weekend, you can go easily from being tied for second down to like 6th, you know? So Indiana certainly needs Nebraska's attention. They've got guys that can hit. I think their pitching is always, they've kind of messed around with their weekend rotation a little bit, but these for whatever reason, the games between Nebraska and Indiana for years have always been extremely competitive and you know, pretty well contested. So it should be a good series, I would guess.
Yeah, and to boot, of the top 6, when only 3 games are from 1st to 6th, Nebraska is the only team that's not currently experiencing a winning streak.
Well, there you go.
All right, Bruntz, go read some bedtime stories to Nebraska's hopes for hosting a regional, and we will talk to you next week.
Yeah, I might do Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs here. That might be the book to go with.
It's really more of a Good Night Moon guy, but that's okay. All right, Bruntz.
Good night, stairs. Good night, chairs. Yeah, I got you.
Thanks, Bruntz.
We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
We will be back. We will be back. will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on KFOR in Lincoln as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior Stage, and I'm reminding you to get out to Warhorse Sportsbook either at the casino in Lincoln or at Horseman's Park here in Omaha. We're going to talk a little baseball coming up with Jesse Rogers. Maybe you want to play some baseball bets. Maybe you're sticking with NBA or NHL like I am right now. You can bet on nearly every major sporting event at Warhorse Sportsbook. They've got live bets, straight bets, props, parlays, whatever you can think of, they've got you covered. It's the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. For a full list of details and house rules, go to warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook. That's Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory. DB, how old is too old to play college football?
28.
Starting or graduating?
I couldn't believe this story.
So you may remember a used to be young wide receiver by the name of Monty Harrison, who was once committed to, let's count, 1, 2, 3, 4 Nebraska coaches ago.
Yeah.
Which probably says more about Nebraska than does Monty Harrison, but that's fine.
Yeah, 13, 14?
Yeah, he was 2014 recruit in Bo Pelini's, would have been Bo Pelini's final class. And he went and played baseball for 10 years. I believe he played in a handful of major league games, but mostly a minor league player there. Just committed to the University of Arkansas to play football.
It's unbelievable.
At 28 years old.
So, you know what I'm more impressed with?
What's that?
His level of security.
How so?
Because I think a lot of people would look at it and be like, I'm too old to be playing against those guys. It doesn't get, I'm not, like most 28-year-olds don't enjoy competing against 18, 19, 20-year-olds unless, I guess you could say this is getting paid professionally. But to make a conscious effort to go back to college.
When he's walking on.
You have to really love competing.
Or maybe he really loves football and kind of wants to try and
That's
go back.
what I'm saying. Like,
wants to try and go back and get it. You know, I think he was a second round pick, so he got some decent bonus money out of the deal.
Yeah, I hate to be in other people's pockets because it goes quick, but
no, I know. And,
and it's like,
I'm not saying he still has it, but
I do wonder why Arkansas, though, like in its totality.
Maybe they're the only ones that would take him. I don't know. Like, he's walking on. He's not a scholarship deal, so he's obviously just. And I mean, he was a really good prospect at the time. He was a high 4-star wide receiver.
There were a couple of guys that saw him locally that said, in our recruiting industry, that thought that they've called him the best prospect that they had seen.
It's just a really strange situation.
Shoot, at that time, was it my guy Nate the Great? It might have been Klaus that said that, or Schaaf.
Because you know how old Chris Wanke was when he graduated from Florida State?
26?
He was 28 when he left Florida State.
Okay.
Whedon was 26.
Whedon, that was 26.
Whedon was 26 when he left Oklahoma State.
I know it was one of those W's.
But Monty Harrison starting at the age that Chris Wanke was.
Yeah, I don't know if that's ideal physically, even though that's probably your peak age, but you're just getting started to do those skills. Your body hasn't been through
that in a long time.
And I mean, not to get into NBA versus NFL or MLB, but rigor is a thing, and it's
Yeah.
a real thing.
Well, and I will say, and I told you this off air, but I will say in that whole argument, if you're telling me, and I think you're telling me this among other things, but if you're telling me that there's a certain, like most guys, whether NBA, MLB, just Joe off the street, just do not have the toughness, mental strength, whatever you want to call it, the fortitude to want to go through what football puts you through, I'm never going to argue that.
Yeah,
I will never argue.
This is a different way to end the discussion. I always think all things being equal athletically, one sport is a lot less demanding.
Yeah,
so,
it's yes. Football is.
I don't know how
physically
else to,
demanding.
I don't
in a
know
way
what
that,
other 55 ways I could say it, but it's just
football is more physically demanding than just about everything else.
Yeah.
Again, you can make an argument for hockey, but I don't think that's on the same level.
Yeah, I was very disappointed we both threw out hockey.
I mean, hockey just blows my mind. It really does.
It's incredible.
The things that those guys are doing while just running around on knives just doesn't even make sense to me.
It's incredible.
I will never disparage hockey in terms of the physicality.
How about their hand-eye coordination?
Unbelievable. I can't even follow what's happening with my eyes.
So full disclosure, that might have been one of the most interesting things that you've ever told me, and it was on a humbug off air on why you couldn't, even though you like soccer, why you couldn't get into hockey.
Yeah, it's harder for me to follow. It's like just the pace of it, the size of the puck. Like it's harder for my eyes to follow what's happening.
And my response to that was, you weren't. I said, "Oh, I appreciate you sharing." Kind of, I was just trying to encourage you because you're being vulnerable. But I'm like, they almost ruined the game because a lot of people are with you, right? They didn't like the laser puck. But they did it.
Yeah, the glowing puck to help people
because they were trying to grow the audience.
Yeah, they were trying to get people like me who had a hard time following it or whatever. I don't know if my eyes are bad or if I just didn't.
There are people, listen, don't kid yourself. There are hockey fans, I think, sometimes that wait to see people's arms go up on whether they scored or not.
Yeah, and I don't like watching sports that way. I don't like being reactionary and not understand what's happening as it's happening.
Yeah, I got you.
And so I like soccer because it's spread out enough.
You said I can see the ball.
Yeah, well, I can see the ball. That helps a lot. And it's spread out enough that you can kind of see things happening in real time, where hockey is super condensed in a lot of the action-packed sequences. Where basketball, it's condensed, but again, I can see the ball. And I started watching basketball at a time where it's ingrained in how I process things. I didn't watch hockey really young, so that it's part of my DNA the way basketball is. So I understand that's certainly part of it.
That's funny because that's just the opposite the way I think. As in soccer, it's too spread out. I mean, there's just too much field there. There's too much green in between the players.
I can see that too.
There's just way too much going on.
I mean, well, so I was out
too big of an
because
area.
for if you like hockey, again, understand the context of what I'm saying. If you like hockey, soccer could come across as too slow developing.
Yeah, it's slower paced. But I was out at Union Omaha last night for the U.S. Open Cup, which was a super great atmosphere over at Caniglia. I hadn't been over to Caniglia in a long time.
It's beautiful.
They've done a great job turning that into a soccer facility. And it was a great atmosphere. There was 4,000 plus out there supporting Union Omaha. They had a lead for much of the game and then had that heartbreaking loss in the final minute of extra time against an MLS club. They were, literally just a few minutes of extra time away from going to a shootout. So heartbreaking loss there for Union Omaha. But I can watch that and understand what's happening, even though I don't have a super good technical acumen for soccer because I never coached and never played it.
How many people there in attendance do you think literally left their Sporting KC gear in the closet to this time?
Rock the Union Omaha?
Yeah.
I don't know, because there were some people rocking the Sporting KC
it's a
gear.
very popular franchise.
Yeah, and it's close, right? So it's the closest MLS team. It's high level. It's the highest level of soccer that the U.S. has, at least. I don't know, probably a good amount.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of people that, and I don't blame them. If you want to have an MLS team, Kansas City makes sense. but it also makes sense if you live in Omaha to be a
Unless
Union
you're like
Omaha fan.
anti-Hunt family or something. I don't know.
I don't know either. Then you have to, I think, boycott the entire U.S. Open Cup then.
Oh, it depends on where's the new stadium. Where's the football stadium going?
Maybe Kansas. We're going to Kansas. Maybe
you better stop.
We're going downtown. Maybe
Yeah,
they're moving.
maybe
We're moving. Getting rid of the Royals, going somewhere else.
I don't know. We used to go to football clinics, glazier clinics across the street from that. I don't even know what the hotel is now. It used to be. I want to say it wasn't the Ramada. I think it was a Holiday Inn, and then they like put a Cocoa Keys in there, and then I don't know what it is now because I almost never go that way, unless we're going to North Kansas City, but I wonder what that hotel is. The only advantage to staying there was Gates was not very far. The quote unquote
barbecue place,
the quote unquote good Gates, wasn't that far away from that hotel. That was the first hotel I went to a glazier clinic in 06.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's got to be a dump now.
Oh, probably.
I wonder what the restaurant is next door. Because for 3 times in a row we went there, it was something different each time.
Yeah. There's
one time it was I think it was a Denny's.
Oof.
And
there's places like
that. Then
it
was a little knockoff sports bar.
There's locations like that where it's like, oh, in 6 months that'll be a different restaurant, and they just.
I wonder how often TK is in that area. I should ask him. He's there.
He would probably know. Coming up next, though, a guy who does know at least a little bit about baseball is Jesse Rogers. He will join us to wrap up the show, talk a little Major League Baseball. We had your college covered with Bruntz. We got your Major League Baseball covered with Jesse Rogers. We're giving DB his baseball fix today.
We're talking baseball
here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR, and Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, live on the Pillar exterior stage here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are efforting Jesse Rogers to talk a little baseball. Sounds like Shane's got him on
Who knows? He
the
just likes
lines.
talking.
He might just be talking to himself.
I do like talking to myself, but Jesse's a better conversationist, so go with him.
I mean, that's a pretty low bar to clear there, Shano.
Wow.
We've got
just dishing on the old producer.
We've got
Or is
Jesse.
it the greatness of Jesse?
It's the greatness of Jesse.
That's what it
all.
is.
Yeah, we've got Jesse Rogers here from ESPN. Jesse, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Hanging in there. I'm a Dodgers fan, and I felt like such a chump a couple of weeks ago. I was like, win 3, lose 1. I need to get off to a better start. And now they're starting after the Braves series. I feel a little bit better, Jesse, but I mean, those are total first world problems relative to all the teams in Major League Baseball, right? The Dodgers.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you bring them up because I was talking to another executive who said to me, they're the only team he can remember in baseball of all sports that can kind of turn it on when they want. And you don't really hear that in baseball because that's tough to do. But you know, we hear that maybe in the NBA more. But they kind of are like that. You know, they can just kind of turn it on when they want. I almost feel like Ohtani's like that. He can kind of go on a run whenever he wants. It's not something you hear in baseball. So I wouldn't worry about them in the playoffs. It's more about what happens in October than getting there for sure.
Yeah, we were talking, I don't know, a couple of days ago, and Ravi was reading some articles, and interesting enough, we were talking about the Cubs. It was Imanaga, right? And he was referenced in the article, and I think it was Gammons. It was Gammons, maybe.
So, yeah.
That referenced him as a soft tosser, and he was like, you know, his 4-seamer's 92 mile an hour. I can't believe he's referred to as a soft tosser. And I said, yeah. In the same vein, I saw Walker Buehler's article where he said he's feeling confident now after touching 96. I'm like, where are we now when these are the numbers that are being lobbied around as predictors for each type of hard throwing or soft tosser, right? I mean, guys throw the baseball hard.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I was talking to the Padres after facing Imanaga, and Bogarts basically said to me it'd almost be easier if he threw 95. We're so used to that. But it's a 91, 92 rising fastball. It's almost too slow. It's kind of weird to hear that because back in the day, that was kind of what anybody would throw. And so, yeah, most guys are throwing in the mid to upper 90s. So maybe a guy that locates at 91, 92 does have an advantage. Although I do think Imanaga's advantage is first time through the league. When he sees teams for the second and third time, I think things will be a little different. But, man, what a start he's had.
Given how baseball is going with velocity, would you rather be a guy that can work left to right or up and down in the zone if you're pitching?
Probably left to right because that swing and miss that Javi Baez has on those sliders and many, many other guys, even great players, Luis Robert has that kind of swing and miss. A lot of the sluggers will fall for those sliders that start in the zone and move out, you know, the sweeper type thing. I'd rather work left to right because even if you make a mistake, I feel like it can be harder to square up, where you can square something up and down a little bit more. That's just kind of my personal opinion since you asked. But, you know, if you're not locating that high fastball exactly right, it's going to get hit a long way. Same with that sinker, where left to right, I think you can get away with a little bit more, in my opinion.
We're talking with Jesse Rogers of ESPN. Jesse, you know, my co-host here is complaining about his first world problems with the Dodgers. And meanwhile, I'm over here as a Red Sox fan, just wondering how long it is until we're in last place.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
because it's coming, right? It's coming.
Yeah. All pitch, no hit, right? That's kind of what they are. I mean, at least they've got that figured out. It's good to have a pitching infrastructure. I do like their left-handed hitting. You know, the Blue Jays don't have left-handed hitting. We'll see what the Rays are exactly. I mean, Baltimore and New York are certainly the class of the AL East. But look, I'd rather have pitching figured out than hitting, because that's the name of the game still. So they may not end up in last place. Let's see.
Let's stay right there with Toronto. That roster seems like it should be better, especially the staff. And maybe it isn't so much the starting rotation as much as it's been the bullpen. How do you explain what's going on? Well, number one, with their lack of offense, and then two, what's going on in the back end with those arms?
Well, I'm a big proponent of left-handed sluggers. They are even more needed than right-handed ones. Like, you need to even out your lineup. The Yankees looked for forever for a left-hander to even their lineup up. They finally did that with Soto. The Blue Jays were on the right path when they went after Ohtani. It didn't happen, and they didn't pivot to Bellinger or anything. Big mistake. They're too right-handed. The White Sox basically had to blow up their offense because they've been too right-handed over the years. I mean, there's certain teams that don't understand what it means to have a left-handed slugger. And I think the Blue Jays are a prime example of that. That's why even if they make the playoffs, they always flame out, because in the playoffs, you're facing these great right-handers, and you need left-handed slug. Right-handed pitching neutralizes right-handed sluggers. And pitching-wise, I think the Blue Jays will right the ship. I just don't like their offense because they're too right-handed.
Sticking in the AL East, DB and I were talking about Baltimore a couple days ago, and how despite their record, which is really good, despite their run differential, which is really good, it kind of feels like maybe they aren't playing their best.
There's another win 4, lose 1 kind of team, right? When they're 24-12, and you're thinking, oh, is that it?
Yeah, you look at all the numbers, you're like, oh, that's a really good team, but you kind of watch them, you're like, oh, I thought they might be a little better. Like, are we being a little too picky here with Baltimore?
I think so. I almost feel like Baltimore has a little bit of the Dodgers in them, which is insane. So the Dodgers are a veteran group, but I just feel like Baltimore's so talented that they can turn it on when they need to. I'm not saying they're taking days off on purpose. You know how that. But there are dips with a young team sometimes, but they'll always respond. I mean, they're just too good, and they don't really have a weakness. I mean, they're good against lefties. They're good against righties. They're good in the division. They're good during the day. They're good during the night. Like, I wouldn't worry too much about Baltimore. And that's saying something, because they are still young and they could go on a dip for a while. But they're just too talented to stay in that mode long. Look, they still haven't been swept, right? Is that still right?
Yep.
Adley Rutschman came up yet? So, I mean, how do you worry about a team that can always respond, always respond after a couple losses? So I almost feel like they're in that Dodgers category. I like Baltimore better than New York. New York is prone to offensive issues that go on for days and weeks, because Stanton and Judge forget how to hit sometimes. But I don't worry about Baltimore, which is amazing to say because they're still very young.
So it's interesting. And I hate asking this question because they always, especially the last handful of years, they'll defy it and defy the odds. But am I finally able to ask this question comfortably? Like, do we need to worry about the Braves' depth, or is it just a matter of time and they'll do Braves things as the season progresses, Jesse?
No, I think it's the latter, but it also could be the competition. Look, there's 3 good teams, great teams in the NL: Phillies, Braves, and Dodgers, at least this season. Everyone else is chasing them. I mean, maybe they don't win the division. Maybe this is the Phillies' year to win the division. But as those 2 teams have proven, winning the division doesn't get you far sometimes. The Phillies were wild card teams the last 2 years and beat the Braves. But clearly the Braves are going to make the playoffs. And maybe they're going to pace themselves a little bit differently and keep their pitchers healthy as much as they can now that Strider's down, to have them at full strength in October, because they haven't been the last couple Octobers. You need Max Fried in October.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about the Braves. I don't worry about the Phillies. I don't worry about the Dodgers. Everyone else is chasing them. And whoever wins the NL East is not guaranteed to make the World Series. I commend the Phillies for getting off to a much better start than they have in the past, but maybe it's the Braves' turn to kind of take it easy during April, from April to October, and then turn it on, because it hasn't worked for them the other way the last 2 years. So Alex Anthopoulos, one of the best in the business.
Yeah.
He'll add on when he needs to, and I think the Braves will be just fine.
It's funny, too, because they're such a victim of their own success. I look at Sale and Morton as their 2-3 right now, and I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, well, I don't know if that's good enough. Like, that doesn't sound right, does it?
No, it doesn't. They're fine. They're down star, though. They're down an ace. I mean, it's not always easy to recover that quickly. So let's give them credit. 22-12 without Strider. They'll find their level. They'll get back on a streak. They always do. And then he'll add on in July because he always does. I love Anthopoulos. He's the best, one of the best to do this. So the beauty is, again, the competition in the National League. There's 3 good teams and everyone else is kind of eh. And so that means the Braves and Phillies are going to be there, whoever wins the division.
Jesse, in 2024, who's better? Who should be better than their record is currently? The Astros or the Padres?
Oh, I thought you were going to give me the field to choose from because I was going to say the Cincinnati Reds. I'm really
and they've only recently kind of hit the skids. They were playing good ball.
Yeah, they were, and they have injuries, but everybody has injuries. I don't think they've responded well. Other than De La Cruz, their offense is tanked. So the Reds should be better. I think the Padres are okay. You know, they've had a few injuries too. Musgrove now. They just picked up Arise. You know, they're 20-20. They're okay. Who was your other team you're choosing?
Houston.
Yeah, what's their deal?
Well, because let me get to Houston in a moment. The Diamondbacks should be better. Absolutely better than what they are. I love the Diamondbacks coming off the World Series and what they did in the offseason. There's no reason that team should be under 500. So I've given you a couple there. I mean, yes, Houston should be better. That's obvious. But could this be the year they finally take a step back? I mean, it's looking that way right now. But they should be better than 12-24. I mean, they're behind the Athletics. Come on. That's I mean, they're behind the Angels. They're behind the Angels. So that's an easy answer. Now, maybe should they be 24-12? Maybe not. Maybe not. They have so many pitching injuries. I can understand taking a little bit of a dip, but Joe Espada is going to feel some heat considering what A.J. Hinch did when there, Dustin Baker, what he did was there when there. So this is a big, big drop-off for Houston. So that's almost an easy answer. I sort of like those other teams as teams that should be better even if they're not in last place.
That's Jesse Rogers from ESPN. Jesse, we appreciate it. Hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Appreciate it, Jesse.
You got it, guys. Be well.
That's Hurrdat Sports Radio for Thursday. We'll wrap up the week tomorrow.